I'm really excited about our panel today. We have a few entrepreneurs and a financial professional helping us talk today. First and foremost, we have Refanae Sanders. Did I say it correctly? Refanae Sanders, who is the founder and CEO of Inspire Brand Management and owner of Woombly. And then I have Cameron Caldwell, who's the founder of Taper Branding. Also, Gabrielle Veasley, CPA, commercial real estate investor and advisor, and overall entrepreneur. And then we have back on the show, Kadia Michelle, who's a certified financial planner. Welcome to the podcast, everybody.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you guys here. So I'm gonna start out first because obviously I gave you guys a quick intro, but I want you guys to tell me more about yourself. So Refanae, if you could start, what it is that you do and kind of explain to the folks at home how you get your coin.
Listen, I am Refanae Sanders, founder and CEO of Inspire Brand Management. So you were right on the money with that one. I've been in the experiential marketing industry for 18 years and own my business for 8 of those 18. So we're literally looking at over 20 years or 2 decades almost of experience in this field.
Ooh.
And so also, as mentioned, the co-founder and president of Woombly, which we are the first woman-owned, black-owned, non-toxic menstrual pad company founded in the state of Texas. But my baby is Inspire Brand Management. And so I started in Dallas, Texas with a team of me. Now we're a team of we. And what we do is we help our clients identify their customer base and grow their repeat customer base, primarily in the retail food industry or CPG, consumer product goods. So think your Whole Foods, your natural grocers, your central markets. And you see that person in there and they're like, hey, you want to try this chips and salsa? Mm-hmm. Except we're not just chips and salsa.
Right.
We have very deep relationships with our retailers, and we specialize in building, if you will, those internal relationships, because relationships rule the world. It's not about who you know, it's not about who knows you. Is that how you say it? It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you.
I mean, I ain't heard that one, but that one was cold too.
It's not about who you
yeah.
Right.
What you know, but who you know.
Come on, right? Or if your name is circulating enough around, then
That's
it'll
why
come
you gotta
back.
know somebody. That's what
Right,
it sounds like.
okay?
Yeah.
Or at least be willing to build that relationship.
Be known, yeah.
That part. And so with that in-store demonstrations, we literally were there to build brand awareness, to help them identify their customer base, and overall, when we're authentic and being smile support, if you will, we're able to cultivate a relationship and have that connection that we've lacked for so long.
Mm.
And so then we were able to facilitate that into a full industry business. So we are now leaders in our forefront. I'm very excited about that. Mm-hmm. We are a company of we now operating in about 25 states. I have clients in 6 continents, and most of that is just brand awareness. And so we're a full steam ahead company, if you will. We'll elaborate that as we get on into it.
So when you gonna get to Antarctica?
Come on, Antarctica? No. It's cold there. The answer is no. And the answer is no and no thank you. But hey, product placement, we're expanding into the Midwest, and I'm excited to talk about that at some point.
God's country.
God's country, because
Yeah.
that's the only thing that's there. No, but expanding, we develop brands. We help you from a space of conception to on the shelf to making you a household name and understanding how to do that. And so that's why I say it's not just chips and salsa. It's a full customer retail relationship and beyond. So yeah.
I appreciate that. Cameron, you got a hard act to follow
I
up
know.
with,
I'm about to
man.
say, positioning me right here was a setup. That was so eloquently put. No, my name is Cameron. Essentially, I am the founder of Taper Branding. We're a creative agency focused mainly on 3 pillars: brand strategy, so hourly consulting; creative services, so design and marketing, collateral, websites, producing videos, things of that nature; and then the 3rd pillar would be identity design. So some people have a business idea or a concept, but they don't know how to make it show up across channels cohesively, and so we help with that. So those are the main services. Kind of how I got here. I'm just a regular guy that solves problems.
Come on, LeBron.
So, if anything I can impart on people today is just, you don't necessarily have to assign yourself to a specific title. But if you can solve problems and you can show yourself as being valuable to people and organizations, you can find, some level of success. And so that's pretty much what I've been. So with my agency, that's what I do. With other products I build, that's what I do. I studied marketing in school, but I really got my education in the field doing the work.
Okay.
So
Now, did you work in marketing before you hopped into what you do now?
100%. So right out of school, I worked for a home service company, so a small mom and pop HVAC company. Essentially, I led their entire marketing department. I was the only internal hire. So coming out of school, I pretty much touched everything: traditional, out of home, streaming, digital, everything. So I really cut my teeth there, and then I kind of leveraged that up to I've done marketing for venture-backed companies, as well as nonprofits, primarily on the digital side.
Yeah. I feel like those mom and pop shops and the startups give you a lot of experience.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than hopping into a big company that you're doing the same job every day, huh?
Yeah, because you kind of have to be a generalist, and you really learn quickly how to systematize and create processes.
Yeah.
When you going into a system that's already set up, that's one thing, but going to a system and having to create it, that's
from
a whole other
scratch.
skill
Yeah.
set. So,
100%. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Gabriel, what's up, brother? How you doing,
What's
man?
up? I'm doing good, man.
Talk to us.
Doing good. So yeah, I'm Gabriel Beasley by trade. I'm a CPA, so certified public accountant. I work with businesses on financial management, business strategy, and commercial real estate advisory. Although I am a CPA, I have a heavy finance background, so I focus more on strategic thinking when I work with my clients. So you might think bookkeeping, you might think tax. I have people in my firm that I delegate that work to, but I'm more so myself focused on the strategic side, financial forecasting, how to grow, scale a company. With the commercial real estate, I do both the leasing side and the purchase side. So I primarily work with smaller businesses on those transactions, and I do real estate myself as an investor. So I have a few properties here in Dallas. So I do some rentals, also doing more in commercial. Have a few ventures, studio space, co-working space, and with the co-working space specifically, there's an organization called Connected Dallas. So our mission is to help connect entrepreneurs to the resource that they need to be successful. We started a couple years ago, and what I noticed in Dallas was that there wasn't a lack of resources available for entrepreneurs, but there was a lack of knowledge of the resources and access to them. So we really aim to just fill those gaps by getting out in the community, partnering with those other organizations that are a resource for entrepreneurs, raising awareness to them, and actually getting out there and meeting the entrepreneurs where they are. So since we launched, we've done over 150 events. So these are workshops, panels, networking events, business development programs, and it's been a joy doing that. I've been really able to fulfill my purpose and passion with that business. So I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I'm passionate about entrepreneurs. So my purpose in life is to develop entrepreneurs, teach people how to create their own resources. And with that business, I really got to get a jump start to doing that. So on a daily basis, I work with entrepreneurs either directly in their businesses or by helping connect them to resources.
Well, you said that you've been an entrepreneur your whole life, and I know you had kind of a cool story talking about how it all came to be. So how did you become to be Wizard Kelly like you are now?
Wizard Kelly, my head cut off? No, yeah. So like many, I got my first taste of entrepreneurship when I was maybe about 5th grade, and it started because I had a sweet tooth myself. So by the time I was in maybe the 4th grade, I had 3 root canals. My dad, he used to, a lot of dental work has been done. I'm a lot better with it.
They look great now.
I don't really eat candy like that now, but as a child, I had a lot of candy. And my dad, he would go to Sam's Club, stock up his closet. So before school, I would go in his closet, take a bunch of candy out, take it with me to school, right? So one day I'm in school, I'm in class, I'm sneaking, eating the snacks. And one of my friends is like, hey, can I have some? I'm like, no, you can get your own, right? And he's like, well, I'll pay you for it. And I was like, okay. So he did it. Then the next day, he was like, you got another one? I was like, yeah. So I liked how that felt. I liked that feeling of making money. So I kept taking my dad's snacks to school and selling them. Eventually started going to the dollar store, getting the 10 for $1 blow pops for 10 cents, selling them for $0.25, upgraded to going to Sam's Club. And by the time I was in high school, I got the nickname Snack Pimp, right? They called me Snack Pimp because not only was I selling snacks, so I had my duffel bag. I'm selling snacks on the corner in the hallways, in lunch. But I also had workers too, so I had some female workers on the hallway streets too, selling some $25 backpacks. But through that, it really gave me my first taste of entrepreneurship, building a business. Yeah, I know.
He said, Tina, this bag kind of light. What's up? What's going on?
That did happen sometimes. So I got to learn.
Getting shorter than candy.
I got to learn about people management, building a small enterprise, risk management, loss, a whole bunch of stuff I got to learn. But that was my first taste into entrepreneurship, and since then. I've just always been doing something. when I was in college, I started a cell phone repair business, and it kind of just happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I was looking to do. Literally, I was joining a fraternity, needed some money. I remember I used to sell like stuff on eBay in high school, and I was like, well, let me put my broke phone on there, and they paid me like $200, and I was like, well, this like feel good. Let me buy some phones all crazy and start selling them. And then one day I met a guy. He was fixing phones out of his house. And my homeboy took me to his house because he was fixing my phones because I realized I could make more money fixing them than selling them broken. And he was just like venting how he couldn't get like this, retail store because he got bad credit. And I'm like, well, why don't you just pay the whole lease like in cash? They won't say no. And he's like, well, I don't got that kind of money. I was like, well, I do. I've been saving up. So we went into business, and he focused on like the repair side of stuff. And I focused on like retailing phones, but that was something that I was never trying to do.
Right.
It just kind of just like found me, right? So that's kind of just like how everything's been for me, honestly. Really just being prepared for these opportunities as they come up and really just like going with it. So that's how I got started to doing what I am today.
No, I love that too, because I feel like when you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, it's usually like that first sale or first transaction. And you get like a rush from it, right? Because most of our lives we've worked a job, clocked in, clocked out, and we getting paid. Versus like, getting paid versus making money. Like you literally just like made money, like you created that dollar. It sounds like you just got addicted to it and took it way too far in high school. It sounds like, but obviously,
I only tell you part of high school, but yeah, that's all we're gonna talk about on the podcast.
See, if we knew each other, I would have been like, you got to pay off the right, school officials to make sure that you didn't get shut down. But look, we'll talk about that later. Yeah. Kadia, what's up, girlfriend?
Well, I mean, you got me after all these wonderful stories and introductions.
So obviously not an entrepreneur by trade, but in a business is very entrepreneuristic and works with hundreds of or tens and hundreds of entrepreneurs on a regular basis.
Yes. So I am a financial navigator is the phrase I've coined recently because I do feel like that's what I do more than anything else, just helping people navigate throughout their finances. So whether that's just an individual trying to get to retirement or whether that's a small business owner or a big business owner, right? We don't like to call everybody's business a small business. So
your little business you running?
Yeah, not the little business. So not the little business, the big business. But so helping people just kind of get to the other side of things, making sure that those goals are accomplished. And that may mean something different for each person. So I do feel also like a financial, sometimes psychologist, because helping people break concepts in their mind with their relationships with money, right? So just helping people get to the other side, accomplishing those goals. With a lot of my business owners, it's more or less cash flow management, helping them kind of understand the ways that they should not be commingling and making sure that they're separating funds, making sure that they have the right retirement stuff in place, and then just moving the dial forward for them. Right. So whatever that means, estate planning, exit planning, what's the strategy, who we're going to give this business to afterwards, or what's the succession plan, etc. So really just helping them iron out what those details look like, and then figuring out with them as a partner in their business with them of how can we get to the next phase. Yeah. And also there's a big financial literacy point where I try to do at least one seminar every month just to kind of hit whatever topic is of interest at that point.
So it sounds like these busy entrepreneurs check in with you on a regular basis. And while they're, making their money, you tell them, oh, well, you've kind of ascended to this level. We need to start talking about this.
Exactly.
We need to start talking about this. We need to make sure we're doing this. Is that correct?
Exactly. So from as small of a conversation to just, oh, hey, I'm thinking of this. Do you think I have space to really go this big? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of hiring. I'm thinking of this. I'm thinking of, putting this much away. I have an investment I want to do. What do you think about this? Right. Hey, I want to make sure I have some life insurance in place or some other types of insurance just for the business to run. Hey, what about disability insurance? Having those kind of conversations that as a business owner, you're not really thinking about it, but you're the head of the business. Mm-hmm. So if you get sick or something happens with you, what are we doing to make sure that you're protected? Yeah. So just being sure to be a great partner.
So covering up all the holes that people are missing, which I think it's very important because especially, as business folks, we're obviously very talented at something, right? Mm-hmm. But just because we're talented at something don't mean we're talented at everything else, right? Exactly. Like some people are good at business development. Some people are really poor at the bookkeeping or the organization. Exactly. So putting good people in your corner, like an advisor who can help manage the cash flows or whatever it is that you're looking for.
Exactly.
So,
And for me, it was important to become a certified financial planner, right? Not just be just any financial advisor, but be certified so that I could be in a position where I could have those conversations
right.
and feel strong enough to have those conversations and know I'm saying the right things to people, right? But also, even with that, I'm able to speak to business owners because, similar to like Gabriel's story, I was always a business owner. It was never a point in my life that I didn't want to control my own narrative on how am I making money,
Yeah.
right? So whether that be I'm in corporate, but I'm still doing something on the side,
Yeah.
or just doing all these things to make sure so I can speak their language. It's not awkward talking to a business owner because I understand the dream. I
Right.
understand the hustle. I get it. So someone else may come with an approach of, trying to see it from the top where I can kind of get on the same level and just sit down at the same table and understand it's not for them. It's not about all the money and these other things. It's more about the dream and accomplishing the why and things like that. So I think that puts me at an advantage of someone who's just coming in and trying to, let me just be your advisor. Let me help you with your investments. I understand, like, okay, we have people we need to feed and
Right.
we have other things that we need to do to make this still thrive.
And I feel like entrepreneurs are so they feel like they're bulletproof, or they ain't never gonna fail, and you're kind of like the safety valve. Like, look, I know that sound good, but let's go ahead and make sure we protect it on the downside,
Exactly.
just in case, right?
Exactly. Like, I want you to be all the things that you're saying, and I want this to be something that, are we building something up that we can sell later if we need to, and are we building something up that we can prepare in a way that this is building generational or building wealth for you and your family, right? So I think that part has been the most important, just being able to look from the outside and not have that connection and relationship to the business, to be able to be on the outside and say, okay, that we can't do that or we can do that. But giving that perspective and not being but still being on your team. Sometimes people may give a negative feedback, or you may feel it's negative because you don't feel that they're on the same side of the table as you. But I can be on that same side and still tell you from that perspective of, hey, the math ain't mathing. It's a good idea, but the math ain't mathing. We need to keep it like this. We can't really move to that level yet.
Look, that's a commercial if I ever heard. But no, I'm really excited to have you on the panel today, because I think you're going to bring a fresh perspective off of what the three of these entrepreneurs will be talking about. You kind of bringing in the facts and whatnot. So
Super excited.
Here's my first question. All right, before we get going, Side Hustle the CEO, talking about transitioning from working in a formal setting to running your own business. You see the word side hustle everywhere, right? Like, it's almost become, it went from a slang term to becoming like, oh, people know exactly, like the old white person at your job knows what side hustle means at this point, right? So I guess my question is, and we'll start with you, Raffinay. What is it? Can you define it for me? Can you tell us what a side hustle is or what it means to you?
Ooh, me first. Okay, we'll do it. Side hustle. It could be something that you're passionate about that you haven't necessarily taken that leap. It may be something, low key, a side hustle can be as big as small as you want it to be, right? And so for me, as far as side hustling, with the business that I run now, I worked in corporate America in the background of like healthcare and recruiting. And so peopling came natural to me. So I used my natural gifts and my natural talents, created space for me to be a connector and understand what you mentioned earlier, which was, if you can solve a problem, right? Identify a need and solve a problem. And then what you said was, hey, I didn't really choose this. It kind of chose me. So it's a piggyback of all of those things. So in the industry, my now business came to me with me just being who I naturally was. So it was a mindset for me of like, okay, I can't get this extra money. I got kids. I got bills. Oh, wait, I'm good at this. And it's less stress than my regular 9-to-5. As a matter of fact, I can spend more time with my kids if I really shift my perspective and my mindset, and to take it from side hustle to like, oh, if I really dedicate, focus, and strengthen my strengths, then I could be a, can I say the word badass businesswoman.
You say Disney Channel.
You know what I'm saying? But I can be a really nice entrepreneur. But what I want to focus on is empowerment. Inspire, encourage, motivate, and empowering my people to be their most authentic selves. And then how can I help them shift their perspective, if that's what they want, and move that to the next level. So for me, again, like, it went from, oh, I think I can do this. Oh no, I bet I'm gonna do that. Like, and then now we here.
And now I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And now I'm really doing it, because we can't take a break without you answering your phone. So I know you.
This business is growing, but like, literally that was a big thing. And I know we'll get into that. Like that mentality from a side hustle to independent contractor is also different for me. And then from an independent contractor perspective or mental capacity to small business owner, or even like, oh, well, what could I be? Was a very different platform for me to know I should own this. And then I raised my leadership lid. And then that way I was able to hire different levels of people that could come in and strategize with me. So, yeah.
No, that was a robust answer, and I love it.
Oh.
Cam, you too, man. Well, same question for you.
Yeah, I mean, if I just take it literally, it's any hustle you're doing on the side. And so I tie it to money. I think anything you're doing to make money on the side is a side hustle.
I love that. As like as brothers, like we keep it simple. You know, I loved your answer, but we just be like, "What's the side hustle?" Like, well, when you hustling on the side, and you gonna drop the mic and walk out.
Because she mentioned it, like every side hustle, it doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. If you flipping phones, if you flipping couches, if you doing delivery for Domino's, whatever the case may be, if your main thing is something different than this, then that thing is a side hustle to me.
But you, my man. Period. Yeah. Period.
Yeah, I agree with what both of y'all said. I would say, like, first off, like, just hustle. It's just like, to me, it's like a mentality. Like, growing up, you knew who's like a hustler, because it's like, it's not about what you're doing. It's about, how you're doing it. You can, like, hustle, like, I'm going to be, selling shirts. I'm going to be selling tickets. I'm going to be doing whatever, to make $1 into $2. So it's like, just like this mentality.
Right.
And when you talk about like the side, like, Cameron was saying, it's like anything outside of like your main thing. Because you could have a main hustle too. You could just be a hustler.
Yeah.
Some people are just hustlers. It's like, hey, this is my main hustle. And I got 3 side hustles. So, anything that's just like on the side.
Yeah. And it's something about hustling too. Like the word hustling is like, obviously I think everything is a hustle by definition, but there's something about hustling where it's just like, I'm getting to it, I'm working hard, but I'm also doing it the way I want to. And keeping my integrity. Because it's something, there's been days on the job where your boss tried you. And it's something about a side hustle. It's like, I don't need that dollar. I'm not finna go get it. I'm going to go get this. I'm going to get that. I choose to make less, or I choose to make more. I choose to work more. I choose to work less.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Come on. No, this is an open forum. What's up?
No, I think we'll keep it moving for now. I may circle back.
I was going to add.
Oh, go for it.
I was just going to add something small, just because what you mentioned about choice. And I think sometimes a misconception with the side hustle is that, okay, now I don't have a boss, or I could do the way I want to do it. But what I realized, especially as a business owner, is that now instead of having one boss, you end up having like 1,000
bosses. Yeah.
Right. Like, especially in our different industries that people are working in, right? People are a lot more demanding, right? So it goes from, I don't need this and this dollar at this corporate office.
My man got 2 jobs.
Okay, he got 2 jobs. I don't need this. But to then you having multiple bosses, right? And setting up your mindset properly, even in that sense, where it's like, okay, I was walking these dogs because I just really wanted to kind of get away from that. Yeah. But now I got to, each of these dog owners is now mine,
right.
So I think even that is because you mentioned choices, right? Where it's like, the choice is there, where you feel like you are willing to take that because it's something that you love, right? Or like, or whatever it is. And that's that extra money on the side. But I do think that there's something there in the choices, because we just make a shift in who we have to now serve. Or
I agree. And that servitude piece.
Yeah.
I know that we'll get down the line and talk about that, but I think, or in addition to, I would say, is not only is it a mentality shift, but like, hustle. I don't work for you. I partner with you. I partner. That's a different mentality. I partner with you, and we collaborate cohesively together to create a win-win environment.
Come on, Merriam-Webster. Come on.
Hey, wordologists, if you will. But it's that thing. And so, like, bosses and or some people, there's a misconception that the dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately, and the grind is sold separately, because everybody can't do what it is that we do individually or collectively, and it is, I'm gonna do this I'm gonna quit my 9 to 5 and maybe work from 7 to 12. Listen, what sleep, Jesus? The way my life is set up.
Yeah.
But it's more demanding, right? You quit your 9 to 5 and now you work in a 24-hour shift in different increments because you. Hello, 9 to 9. It's ghetto out here. I wish they would have told me. Okay.
That's another question we're going to ask later.
We'll talk about it, but it's worth it. It definitely is worth it. So.
How does one start a side hustle? Like, well, how did you start your side hustle? I'm gonna start with you.
How did I start my side?
Yeah,
hustle?
like what made you when you were working your corporate job be like, all right, I'm gonna do this, and then it got bigger and then it got bigger. Walk us
Come on,
through
pimpin' snacks.
that. Snack pimp.
Well, I would say like so. By the time I started working, my job was my side hustle. The point I'm saying is I always been an entrepreneur, so I had my business before. So when I went in my job, they already knew like, hey, I got a business. This is what I'm doing. As long as hey, as long as you're able to deliver, we cool with that. So literally like, well, I don't work there anymore. So, but so like,
Talk bad about him. Go ahead.
no, I'm not talking bad. I'm just saying, like, you know how it is. You work remote. It's flexible. I can do stuff during the day as long as I'm answering the phone, getting back to people. I was really managing my job on the side, which was good. But I would say, like, to answer your question, like, my original side hustle was just, just how, opportunity, how can I, capitalize on the
Yeah.
opportunity that came up. And sometimes those things can grow from a side hustle to a side business to a main business to, whatever it grows to. So for me, it's kind of always like that.
So you was working on the side, and you was
Yeah.
like the hustle was always the goal, but it's like I need maybe some income.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cash in on this
I
degree.
only
I
did
just
corporate
got. Yeah.
because I needed to get my CPA license. Otherwise,
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have never got the job. And I'm glad I got the job because I got a lot of good experience that
Yeah.
I could transfer to the businesses that I do. But it was never like in my mindset to want to go and work for somebody else.
And Cameron, I know you leverage the working world, corporate a lot for a lot of stuff you do. So I'm gonna ask you the same question. How did you start your side hustle?
Man, when you asked me that, I immediately thought like, which one? Because so my journey is that of a creative person, and so like I taught myself graphic design when I was 12, and I've been.
I didn't even have internet at 12 yet, but go ahead.
I've been doing that type of stuff. So I've been designing flyers, mixtapes, all type of stuff for a long time, and so that was a side hustle. My side hustle started as providing services to people who need them using a skill that I taught myself. What that turned into though is learning all the ways I could potentially leverage those skills. And so if you ask me kind of how I started my side hustle, was really skill acquisition. I picked up something that was useful. I picked up a couple things that are useful, and then I started finding people who needed those services. And kind of what made me decide to turn it into a business was when I found a way to create something sustainable. And even sustainability changes over time and through your experience. And I can talk about that later on. But, it went from being project by project by project to, okay, here's a longer term engagement that I can potentially have with a company or an individual. I didn't know this existed. Wow, okay, I can turn this into a business that is sustainable. So yeah, that's pretty much how it started. It was being exploratory, being curious, picking up new skills, and then identifying people who needed those skills.
This goes for anybody on the panel. I got a question. As an entrepreneur, did you ever start any of your businesses because you were in a space and you're like, damn, they ain't got this? Or were you ever in a space where you're like, this is the only person in town doing this and he kind of trash. I could do this way better. Go ahead.
Everyone.
Anybody.
Again, it goes back to solving problems. Like, some people call me arrogant when I say this, but like I really truly feel like I can solve every problem. And not because I feel like I personally can solve it, but I can say, okay, that's a problem. I know who to call on to maybe come together and create a solution to this, even if it's a preliminary solution, right? And so, yeah, it's been times where I was looking at, so I started really taking off on my college campus doing video production. No other student was getting paid by the school to do video production for the school. They didn't pay student vendors. And so I was able to become a student vendor, kind of following a friend of mine who became a student vendor as a DJ. So I saw that blueprint and said, okay, I could redo that. And so I kind of found that white space on my campus, and it really kind of gave me the experience of working with a large institution, understanding how to do invoicing, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
At a time where I was just, taking cash apps or, things like that. PayPal at the time, actually. And so, yeah, man, it really started like that for everything.
So when you started, did you know it was going to be this big?
No, I wouldn't even say it's big, but it's I'm definitely further along now than I was then, and absolutely not. Because again, I wasn't looking at it at first like I want to start a business and scale it. I was looking at it like, here's a problem that I am positioned to solve.
Yeah. How about you, Raffinate? Like when you started, was this something like, I'm going to continue working in healthcare recruiting, but I wanted this extra month? Was it recruiting?
No, you're good. I was just like, oh, God, no.
Or was it something like, this extra money nice? I'm going to take care of my kids. Or was it like, look, I don't want to do this no more. I'm telling you right now, it will start small, but I promise you in 5 years, I will not be working here.
It's so funny. It's one of those things like my spirit is kind of like I had this show you mentality thing. So I grew up real quick, and I think it goes into like how I became an entrepreneur, if you will. And so like I was like married at 17 and had a whole kid at like 15.
Oh yeah, you grew up quick.
Yeah, hey, first now,
I was watching cartoons at 17.
It wasn't intentional. But to that point, like I remember being like, oh, you're not going to be able to succeed because you have this child or because you started life early, whether it was intentional or not. So that developed a certain level of hustle and separateness in my mind that I can do anything. So I love the word impossible. It's one of my favorite words because if you take an opportunity to break it down, it means I'm possible.
Ooh,
and so I love
you got
that.
bars. I'm sorry, because
hilarious.
we've been here 5 minutes and you done.
But no, and I think with that, it's so, as I was I did the things that you should do, if you will, if you're trying not to become a statistic or even a generational situation, because if you have your first baby, you're more likely to have your second, third, and fourth within a 2 to 4 year span. So to bring that full circle, it was just, I was graduated from college. Okay, now what? Okay, get this corporate job. Now what? And then at some point, I was still doing my side hustle, which was brand ambassador. So DJing, I would be with the DJs, the go DJs of the worlds, if you will, and the girls in the club, model girls, or we managed a group of models. And so it was easy to find talent, whether it was homegirls, like, hey, girl, we can go make this extra money, or we gonna pass out these little wine samples. And if that was paying more than my regular 9 to 5 that I graduated, like I got 2 degrees and I'm still not making X amount of dollars, and I can stand here and bat my lashes, whether it's pretty coin or not, yeah, like it shifted my perspective on how I saw things. And then to that point, there was a gap in the industry. Like people were sitting there on their phones. Everybody I think has experienced some person that, your customer service is trash. Like you were sitting on your phone. And so when I started this, people didn't realize that this was an industry. Like it was like, oh, you got this hustle. What you gonna do when you're 30? I mean, I just kind of, oh, you got this little job. You trying to start this little thing.
Right.
8 years later. Bet we just absorbed 90% of the market share with this said retailer that we're working with at Central Market, 100% referral-based business. And to your point, I found a space where we private label, or we had a contract, an internal contract, and so we started becoming what they needed, and down to the lettering in our branding. So we look a certain way, we embody a certain thing, and it was just those identifier marks very early on. That was it.
No, you got. I could listen to you talk all day. You got bars. Not saying I couldn't listen to y'all talk, but she be rhyming and stuff. I'm over here like, I'm like, come on, what's next? What made you? I'll start with you again.
Okay.
What made you go into your respective field? I know you kind of explained it a little bit, but obviously you started in healthcare recruiting, got a job, went to college, did the whole thing. And it's a lot different, I would say, than being a brand ambassador.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Which is the weird thing.
Educate me.
No, and not in a bad way. I'm really good at reverse engineering. I had no idea that I was good. Again, natural skills. I talk a lot. And you got to be careful on who you share your gifts with very early, because they can make you feel bad about those. So I got called nosy Rosie. No, I'm inquisitive. I need to understand things that are happening. Raph, you talk a lot. No, I'm gonna negotiate with you, because what I heard you say was, I can't have X, so I'm gonna ask you, if I can't have this, if I do this, can I have that? And so I learned those skills very early on in recruitment, which turned into emceeing. I use my gift, my voice to, I can make 50 an hour, 30 an hour, 25 an hour by just like, hey, come on over to Texas Lottery Lux on doop doop doop. I'll say less. Where we gotta go? So, with that, trying to figure out the right way to answer the question with all of that background. So it will, and don't leave me out here to dry, y'all. Y'all, chime in on this too, because I know that y'all stories are like really popping over there, and I know we can. Don't be shy. I don't like going first. You like put me out here.
That's what you get for sitting close to me.
I know.
Cameron, I got a question for you. Leveraging a job you have to essentially, I mean, we talk about business like back to like biblical times, right? Somebody was a carpenter, then they hired the boy down the street, helped him be, a carpenter associate. And then at some point, you learn everything the boss learns. You go start your own business. That's kind of how the origins of business started. Is my question for you is, have you ever had any jobs, or were there jobs that you had, typical W-2 jobs that you either were doing something like, I could do this better than them, or I could do it on the same scale, or I'm not getting paid enough for what I'm doing. If I do my own thing, I can get more. Or B, did you ever take a job just with the sole fact knowing that, like, I'm just trying to know what the hell y'all got going on, because I'm finna do this in 2 weeks on my own.
Oh man, so that's where I am right now. So, a little context. So, also let's just set this foundation too. We talking about side hustle, the CEO. A CEO, for all intents and purposes, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a job title. And so a CEO of a company doesn't necessarily mean they're a founder, and vice versa. A founder cannot be a CEO.
Yeah.
And so as we're thinking about that, and the reason I bring that up is because even within the confines of a job at a 9 to 5, you can still be an entrepreneur. You can still have side hustles. And you can still kind of venture off on your own, even within those confines. There's actual roles called entrepreneur within companies.
Can you explain entrepreneur real quick?
So in my last role, we had my direct manager was an entrepreneur. And so she basically spun up different initiatives within the company and then built teams around them and built processes around them within one company and had their own separate budgets to manage. And so you're essentially building a startup within a larger entity. And then like those jobs exist. It's where you have the support and backing of a larger company. And so kind of going back to where I am now, right now I have a 9 to 5 and I recently got it for the simple fact that I have aspirations of not only creating, but building out a company that hosts conferences. I've put together small events. I do a weekly meetup now, smaller scale stuff, but I've never produced a conference and never produced a high level production conference, especially. And so the company that I'm with now, I'm learning, the booking schedule of a convention center because I work for Visit Dallas. And so we manage pretty much the Kay Bailey Convention Center. We have stuff booked out all the way to 2030 for a convention center that's undergoing renovation right now. And so learning about how that scheduling works, learning about timelines, learning about client services and sales teams, like I'm getting paid to learn about how I can produce my conferences. That made sense to do. And so absolutely, there have definitely been times where I've joined companies for the specific fact that I want to learn something in this environment that'll help me on my own. And I think going in, understanding what you want to get out of a job is important. Even if you don't understand when you're going to leave, understand what you're there for at least.
And get paid while doing it.
And get paid while doing it.
Yo, I love that so much, especially with like Kay Bailey, Hutchinson, 2030. Yo, that's a long time. But what I heard you also say is like, you saw a gap and was like, yo, if I can learn this whole system and then use it to my advantage, which is like such a dope, again, back to that, this is a job, like depending on the spaces that we're all in, like to be a brand ambassador, in the store, I was able to see so many things in gaps, which it was product placement on the shelf. Like you're not looking for something that's by your ankles or something that's way up top. The importance of it being eye level branding, or even something as in speak to everybody. You never know who somebody, be good to everybody because you never know who someone is going to become tomorrow. So being in this industry, I've seen somebody run the register and now they're like grocery lead, or they're like this said market manager that has influence. And so if you steward that gift, if you will, then that can become like you build that relationship. And now I can go to that person and say, hey, I need X amount of end cap on the shelf, or I can get inside information that's great for my clients based on, oh, okay, hey, how about this? I noticed that this is heavy on the shelf. Well, we have a budget to go ahead and execute these said demos. You don't have to order up. I can help you clear out your shelf. I know inventory is going to happen in next week. Do you mind if I come in and do this? Well, it helps me look like a rock star to my client because, again, it's that reverse engineering piece. What's the bigger goal? And then we work backwards from that. You want demos because you need a lift in your distribution. You're sitting on product as the retailer. Well, how about I come in and create support and let me help you on the staffing portion because I noticed that you were going to have your internal people do this demo. I can absorb that and now you can utilize your people in another space.
And that's like, if anybody's ever taken sales training, that's like basic sales training. You literally go and identify a problem.
Right.
You go find a solution for that problem. Obviously, you put a price to it, and hopefully if the price matches the solution, it sells itself. You don't have to convince anybody.
But
If I need something and I'm looking for something, hopefully if you're able to create that solution, boom. Like, well, what are we doing? Why am I out?
that part, but what you said is at some point, right, we don't have to convince a person anymore. That's a mentality though, because I can remember a time where I was trying to convince someone that I'm the best in my industry, or I'm, if I'm honest, being a person of color, I work in a very male European dominated industry with these dead buyers and being in the store, and so you don't see a lot of people of color in the industry or in the retailers that I'm in that look like us.
Yep.
Right. And so then that's oh my gosh, you look exotic.
Exotic.
What you
Yeah.
like what you mixed with prior to LASIK? My
Exotic. I'm
eyes were
from
great.
Dallas. What you mean
And
exotic?
right, you know what I'm saying? Like your eyes are beautiful, baby, these contacts. But it's not just because of beauty. I can't see. You know, like realistically. And so I remember being a recruiter and I was trying to figure out problem solve. Do you want more money? Do you want location? And I would be asking people to do impossible things like quit their permanent job to that point and move cross country. Trust me with your livelihood and come work for me in recruiting. And I promise you'll get to that end goal. So we had to sell a dream, but at some point you got to stop selling yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have a different belief in your product and know when to stop. Like, hey,
Let's put it out
I've
there.
done the thing.
Yeah.
Either it's going to be a yes or a no. And then we'll just wait here.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I feel like there's just a certain level of confidence that even just comes with all that experience. Like, and even like being in finance, right? Predominantly old white men, right? Yeah. And then so to even break into that and start off in corporate, that was where starting off corporate, really just taking all the figuring out what's the secrets, how they doing it, and even to move from that corporate role to coaching to see, hey, how are you guys actually coaching your advisors? What are we teaching them about how they get business and things like that? So to be able to come out to a franchisee and be able to work in that type of practice and be in control of my finances, to understand that there's nobody that looks like me. They don't. At the end of the day, yes, there's 3, 4, 5, a handful of us,
Right.
but still none of them have my story.
Right.
And I think there's so much power in that superpower, right? And I think sometimes when we're younger, we tend to shy away from certain things, or to think that, you know, I'm the only black person in the room, or I'm the only woman in the room. So CFP, we already know less than 2% are black. Then less than that are women. So even just to embark on a journey like that, just to know that, yes, I want these credentials, but just because I have these credentials, that's not the only thing that makes me good enough to do this thing. And I know a lot of people may think that, oh, more credentials I get, I'm going to be able to prove to them that I'm good enough to do this. But in reality, like, if they don't want to work with you, they weren't going to work with you anyway. So you're really just taking that time away from yourself, your family, your all this. And whereas for me, I feel like these are my superpowers. Like, you're going to work with me because of me, not because of nothing else. Like, yes, I'm qualified.
Yeah.
On top of that,
I'm qualified.
and I'm qualified. So don't tell me nothing else. But you're not even going to just choose because of those qualifications. You're going to just, and that's okay that you may not work with me. You may not, because I'm not going to be everything to everyone. And I think becoming in these spaces as entrepreneurs, it's that experience, right? It's doing it from the age of 12 or 11, and all these things are such amazing. Like, we should be able to put that even on our resume. Like, hey, I've been doing business development since 30 years, right?
Since I was pimping
Since
snacks.
I was pimping snacks, you know. But at the end of the day,
graphic
like,
design.
it's these are our strengths. You know, these are our superpowers. And I'm so excited even to be with a panel like this, because even as somebody listening to these things, they can understand that the things that you have that make you different, that is your superpower. Like, lean into that. Don't think that it's like, oh, because I'm this, that's why I'm on the other side. But no, that's a whole different demographic that nobody's talking to. I literally have one of the coaches, and he's like, Kadia, wait, you're black, you're a woman, you're in the industry. He's like, there's literally nobody serving you.
Man.
He's like, you have nobody serving you. And I have so many clients that are like, girl, I've been looking for somebody like you.
Looking for you, yeah.
I've been looking for, and that's where the transition from corporate to come over to this side, even though I'm still in some sort of role, but I mean, I'm in control of my stuff. So it's like, kind of, that's the strength, that even though I could take a little cut, but I know that I'm building something bigger, and I'm able to service a different group that is not being serviced.
So I want to build off that. You know, the industry that you're in is primarily white, male, and old.
They old.
You are neither white, neither male,
Not white.
and
Old.
you're not
Last
old
time I checked.
either, right?
Not old.
So here's my question: when you're in a business like that, and anybody can answer this as well too, when you're in a field that has always looked a certain way, or clients expect a certain something that is just not you? How do you navigate finding your identity?
I think that it's interesting because I think the biggest kind of not a slap in the face, but the hardest part to really swallow and just to understand sometimes is that first off, the ones that most of the time you put yourself out there to serve, to recognize that they're not always going to be your first clients.
It be your own people, man. It be your own people.
It be your own, and it's really you're willing to take, right? Because any of these people that I'm sitting next to could be billionaires, right? But sometimes we take a little bit less because we want to help the ones that look like us, right? So I think just understanding that, hey, it's not against you. It's just that, that's just what, as a people, we're used to that. So the hardest part is sometimes you come off a little bit like a charity at the beginning in some of those spaces because you end up giving away all this knowledge for free a lot of times. So like I have one friend, she's African-American Black lawyer, and she was like, hey, the most difficult thing is a lot of people think that they can talk to me for free. And that's the most difficult thing because so many people think that they deserve to talk to me. Like they just can come and ask me whatever question. But if I was talking to anyone else of any other race, they would recognize that as a lawyer, there is a fee to talk to me. They would recognize that my expertise didn't just fall in my head. But a lot of times we feel like we're owed it, right? And I should be able to ask her financial advisor any type of question. I should be able to ask this realtor any type of question. I should be able to ask them, but we don't take that as much as the value. So it's just recognizing, I think, that I don't hold myself out as only a female Black advisor because I'm gonna serve anybody who wants to work. But at the end, and not putting myself into a box of, I am this only specific. But those are my superpowers. I will work with that, but also understanding that there's so much money out there. It's just not enough of us to get it, right? So it's just focusing on that and figuring out what's the best way to make it happen.
I'm going to bounce off that for everybody else. Do you guys feel like because of the way you look in the spaces you are, that audacity is increasing by people? Like people thinking they can undercut you for something they never do it for a company, or they can talk to you anyhow, or, that's my question. Go ahead. Somebody answer.
So I was going to jump in and say, I don't think we should separate it, but I understand why we separate it. Because I think that it's an exposure thing more than a race thing. But unfortunately, people who look like us just haven't been exposed to certain lines of business. Like we may not have necessarily been exposed to professional services that we pay a fee to essentially rent someone's brain.
Right.
It's like we don't understand consulting.
We don't respect intellectual property, right? Like we respect somebody come do some, install a fridge or do the floors, but we don't expect something you studied a long time ago. I'm like, hey man, can you help me do this real quick? Yeah,
100%. So I think it's an exposure thing. But on that end, I've experienced it a whole lot, and without the testimonials, without the social proof, I've had to default to, all right, let me do this to kind of build that up. And now once I do have the social proof, I can come in with the confidence and say, I don't just think I'm good at this and I know what I'm talking about. Somebody else can vouch for me as well. And so now I'm, comfortable commanding my price. But unfortunately, at the beginning, it was a lot of like, okay, let me do this for you. Yeah. In exchange for maybe some sort of recognition that I do know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And a lot of times there was people that look like me. I feel like people feel comfortable because they're not used to it, right? We had a joke, and it was, the older I get, the worse this joke gets, but we also always mess around when we play football. We say, 2 things I want white, my quarterback and my accountant. Which is sad. We grew up in an era where it wasn't black quarterbacks, right? The black quarterbacks we like watching in college, they never transitioned to the pro game correctly, right? Now, look, we got Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, we got 9 black quarterbacks playing in playoffs. And vice versa, like, man, black folks gonna rip you off. Go ahead, give your money to a white man. They know what they talk about. They both very toxic, but just like you said, I can see how people would disrespect your guys' professions because they're not used to seeing people like you. I'm a pivot a little bit, and I'm gonna send some questions over to that side of the couch because we got the finance people. I want to talk about cash flows. So budgeting, cash flow, all that is one thing when you have the same check coming in every 2 weeks for 52 weeks, right? Or 26 pay periods, 52 weeks, right? How did that change when you started your side hustle? And how do you manage your cash flows? And then Kadia, after I'll have you talk to it from some giving tips and advice on that.
So the question for me?
Yeah, the question for y'all smart numbers people at the end of the couch.
Well, yeah, planning just becomes more critical than ever because, like, like I was telling you before, when you have like a stable paycheck and you're building a business on the side, I mean, for one, when you transition, it's like even if you have your transition plan, I'm gonna make this amount of money and then I'm gonna, stop working or whatever. It's like you still are missing this big gap of income that was there on the side when you
Right.
start working. So it's not like you total making 300,000, 150 here, 150 here. You still missing 150, so it's gonna be a big hit. So you got to plan. Definitely have like
So when
some
you
savings.
when you jump away from the job to the side hustle, you take a decrease.
Yeah.
But then, oh, my bad. Keep going. I just want to make sure I understood what you
Yeah.
was talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, just point that out first. Like it's a big adjustment. It's not a small thing to give up. However much you're making at your job,
Yeah.
even if you are making good money, unless your side hustle business is doing like just way beyond and growing.
Yeah.
It's always gonna be like some gap of money coming down. So like planning, having reserves, but really just understanding, where every dollar go is critical and like planning like ahead of time, both personal side and business side too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people, they jumble them together.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I need this and I need that. And it's like, well, you really got to take the time to say, okay, how much do I really need versus what I would like?
Mhm.
How much do I really need to get paid out of my business?
Yeah.
Since we're talking about business, and is my business in a position to be able to pay me this? And the way I tell people, it's like, okay, well, if you could hire somebody that was doing what you do, could you pay them? And if not, what do you need to do to get your business into that position and make decisions off of that? Because it's really tough in the business when you got to make that decision. Like, all right,
Yeah.
we ain't make no money this month, and all these bills due, and it's like, okay, maybe I got employees. Am I gonna pay Sally because I made a commitment to her, or am I gonna pay my mortgage or my rent or my light bill because I got kids and they can't be in the cold? How you make that decision?
Yeah.
It depends on you and your discipline. So it's a tough space to be into. So like it becomes like very like critical that you need to have like a higher sense on how like you like manage like cash flow too, because it's a lot different than just getting revenue. Saying, okay, yeah, we had 10,000 in sales this month, but nobody paid the invoice.
Come on.
So it's like, hey, these bills, they want
Sound good.
they want
Sound
cash.
real good.
They don't want to see receivables. Even
Yeah.
like banks, unless you got like a big contract with like a major company, they don't respect your receivables. You're trying to get lending, you're trying to factor receivables to invoice. They're not doing that unless you got like a contract with like a big company. You can't just say, oh, I got like all these people. It's a legal doc. They don't care.
What about commingling assets?
It's a terrible idea. It's just a terrible idea, and I'm assuming you mean like funds, right? When you say
Funds for the
assets.
most part, because obviously, we all know we should separate, but a lot of people when they in the side hustle, feel like, man, let me go ahead and put that in the checking account.
Like,
Or you know what, that account's kind of big right now. I'm gonna go ahead and buy this purse. I'm gonna go ahead, take this trip off, right?
And it's nothing wrong.
But then, my bad, vice versa. I mean, there might be times where, like you said, your business didn't make things happen, so you might have to take money from your W-2 to pay those bills, right? So,
and there's nothing wrong with doing it to an extent, but it's like how you do it too. Like, don't like go and like pay for that bag or whatever out of your business bank account, your business credit card, because you mix stuff up and you putting yourself in a legal situation. And I'll just leave it at that because I'm not a lawyer, but. If you got an LLC for your legal protection, which a lot of people like us get it for because that's all they know about, all of that goes out the window as soon as you commingle funds.
Right.
If you don't treat it like a business, you're not going to have protections like it's a business. It's just you. So they're not going to take you serious.
So all the protections that the LLC gives you out the door the minute you start treating your business account like your personal account?
Yeah, exactly. And again, I'm not an attorney, but in general, that's what happened. I just got to put the disclaimers out there.
CPAs are always by the book. They're going to be like, look.
You got to put the
Because when I asked
disclaimers.
that question, you was like,
Yeah, you gotta put the disclaimer. But at the same time, like you more than likely will, if you're a small business, have to invest money into your business. But it's like, how are you doing it? How are you documenting that? Like, don't just go and just like start paying for stuff and never keep record. Like, put a record, put money in, record the transaction in your bookkeeping system, accounting system, because you get benefits from that later. Like, because if you don't keep track of that stuff, you're going to end up paying more taxes than you need to. Because when you invest money into a company, you should not have to pay tax on the money you already pay tax on. But if you don't keep track of that, then how are you going to report it correctly and get the benefit to say, okay, well, this is like a return on investment. This is a new income. So it's just like considerations like that you have to take when you do stuff. So like the best way to avoid it is having a clear separation and just having a system to where if you do need to move money around, you can do it, but do it in a clean way.
Right.
That you can go back and somebody else can come in and see
and have a
what's
paper
going
trail
on.
for it.
Yeah. And somebody from the outside should be able to come in and see exactly what's going on.
How about you, Kadir? Do you have any tips for managing cash flows as an entrepreneur with a couple incomes or two incomes?
Yeah, for
one's
sure.
1099, one's W-2.
Definitely. So, I mean, all the responsible is fantastic, especially coming from a CPA. So you already know it's on point.
Yeah.
But I would say the only thing I would add is really when we think about compensation, I think a lot of times when we think about that corporate job, a lot of times or W-2, as you would say, a lot of times we just think about the money we receive, but we don't really think about like the benefits, right? So like the health. So sometimes I'm dealing with small businesses and they don't have any health insurance or they don't have, you know, all the other things that come inside of compensation, right? Automatically, we know it's putting away to our retirement, it's putting away to these other things. But when we're thinking of making that leap, I think when it comes to that cash flow and thinking of the money and where it was going before, we also have to think about all those other things. So yeah, maybe you were making $2,500 a week or every other week or whatever it was. But in reality, to really think net, you were making more than that because really what was coming in was paying for your insurance and was paying for this and was paying for all these other things. So also just not forgetting about that. Like I've seen too many people forget about all those other things that was going to these different parts, right? They didn't put away anything for taxes. They didn't put away anything for their own retirement. They didn't put away anything for their own health insurance. And all these other parts that, you were just naturally getting with that other cash flow that was coming in. So I think that's the only piece I would really add to what was mentioned, because that's the biggest thing, is really thinking of those other parts and making sure you're covered fully in all those other sectors as well. Like make sure it doesn't, it's going to hit you, right? But making sure that hit isn't that hard.
And as Black folks, naturally, I mean, like a lot of us grew up in the parents working jobs, multiple jobs era, right? So tax time was always a time for us to get excited and get some money, right? Like if you were going to ask for something, you was going to ask for it during tax time when Dad had this little check. And I think, or big check, right? My bad, or big check. But I feel like transitioning to business, it's one of them things where it's like, we hate tax time now, right? Because now it's time, we got to pay something. And that first year being an entrepreneur can be a wide awakening. You know what I mean? Especially when you're so used to your take-home pay from your check. And then when money comes to your account, you still think it's take-home pay. You're on the other end of the spectrum, right? I remember my first time, I worked at basketball camp at college. So I never was truly an entrepreneur until about 25-ish. So I always worked jobs or I got paid under the table, right? And I worked at basketball camp and, $10 an hour, whatever, 10 hours, $100. Cool, wrote the check, cashed that mug, did my thing, lived my life. And I do like a couple weeks of summer. And I remember I got a 1099 at the end of the year. I'm like, Mom, what's this? And she's like, no, you gotta pay tax. I'm like, pay taxes? Why I gotta pay tax? Like, I ain't never had to do this before. It's gotta be a mistake. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's gotta be a mistake. And it was just, I'm glad that happened then with like, $1,000 where, that was something I could have worked and made up versus like my first year in business, generating $100K in revenue, not paying my taxes. All of a sudden you realize you got a $30,000 bill and you mess with the IRS for real. You know what I mean?
Let me speak on that real quick. Again, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a dude who made a lot of mistakes.
Putting the disclaimers up.
But
I'm just a kid from Akron, man.
I'm impassioned about this specifically. So as a service provider, especially, like I've had net 30s. I've heard horror stories of people with net 90s. So,
Can you explain what a net 30 and net 90
at the
is?
time of the invoice being due, that company has 30 days before they got to pay you. So they don't got to pay on day one. And so again, if you're talking about cash flow management and knowing what money is coming in, if you got $10,000 worth of invoices out, that don't necessarily mean you're going to have that by the time your bill's due on the first.
Or ever sometimes.
Or ever. And especially if you charge fees, and now companies, horror stories, like say, you got an invoice out for $1,000, you got a 5% fee if they too late and then they finally get back to it, but the fee is on, so they got to issue another invoice. And then that invoice is also a net. It's been some horror stories.
Yeah.
All that to say, cash flow management is super important and taxes are super important. And as a service provider who subcontracted work out, understanding, before I do anything with anybody at this point, they get a W-9 because I don't want to have to chase people at the end of the year to fill out a form that I need to file my taxes and wait on other people. And like, that's another thing I didn't think about until recently. And a lot of other people think about, like, when you become a business owner, you get on the other side of it. Like, you have to do your due diligence to get your paperwork in order and seek out professional help to make sure you know what you need to do. Otherwise, you're gonna be chasing people and doing stuff at the last minute, and you're gonna hurt yourself.
What's a W-9?
Essentially, I don't know, but essentially, it's like a tax form that subcontractors fill out to make sure that any money that they get, like their tax withholdings,
Right.
they handle that. I don't have to pay taxes on money. Like if I hire you out for $1,000, that's $1,000 of income that I didn't receive, so I shouldn't pay taxes on
your
that.
ability to write off their salary.
Yeah.
And now it's on them, right?
Yeah.
And instead of getting that, because a lot of business owners give those out at the end of the year, which is messed up, right? Because now if I'm looking for you and answering my call,
100%.
that's on me.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that position.
Quick clarification. Everything you said, the W-9 is to get their information, and what you actually have to issue by January 31st is the 1099. If you don't issue the 1099, you're not going to be able to deduct their income if you don't issue the 1099. So you need the W-9 so you have the information. You don't have to give that to the IRS. You just need to have it so you can do the 1099.
Right. Technically, you don't need a W-9. You just need the information.
I know you
on
want to
it.
have a W-9.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you don't submit that to the IRS.
Yeah.
But you need to issue the 1099 both to the IRS.
But obviously, without the information on the W-9,
Yep. So it's a two-part process.
Yeah.
So I just don't want nobody to be like, oh, I got this W-9. So,
Yeah.
so I'm good. It's
no,
like,
I'm glad we clarified.
it's like
that,
you still need to follow up, because what it is, it's like if you don't, I think the amount's like $600.
$600. Well,
86
where I'm at is $600.
Yeah, so if you don't work with it, you pay anybody more than that amount, you're not going to be able to deduct it off your expenses, and then that's going to take your tax bill way up because you paid all this labor and they don't care.
You don't want to have to figure this out at the last minute.
You don't, because you spend a lot of money.
And that's how a lot of artists go broke. My cousin used to work for, she was a business manager for a lot of famous singers. One in particular, I remember I went on tour with was Shaka Khan. And that was her job, because some of the artists she's worked with in the past ain't never issued W-9s, when they help folks out, when they help out the hood, X, Y, Z. And now, the principal or the person's in tax trouble because they never wrote off, well, not because of that. They in tax trouble for other stuff, but like with other ways to try to fix the tax trouble, it's like, that we could have been writing this off. Like, why did you know what I mean? You just giving somebody $5K cash to play the drums for you, and now he getting $5K, no taxes, you paying tax on the money he made. So.
Yep.
I'm gonna just hop in here.
Go ahead, hop on in.
in the space of net 30, net 90, net 60, whatever that little space is, I remember doing my first deal with General Mills. And General Mills, it makes you feel
Minneapolis.
excited. Come on.
Come on now.
You
Come on,
see
Midwest.
General Mills on the shelf, and you're like, okay, we about to,
Yeah.
we about to do some demos. It's
We finna
citrus
blow
fest.
up.
We about to, and I felt good because it's General Mills. And then they had this budget where it was literally yogurt and protein bars, but they were willing to, we adjusted what we paid or what our cost was to fit their structure. So my first General Mills check was $7,000. Now we performed this service or these demos, these activations, if you will, in January. And I was like, all right, cool. They got a net 30. I didn't get paid to June. So that cash flow, and like exactly, you like, oh my God.
Sound good, feel good.
So
but
it's those big companies that you really have to you can't, for me, it was a huge learning curve for me because we performed this work. I've paid them, my people, or I'm needing to get paid $7,000 later. I'm thinking at best, maybe at worst case scenario, March, maybe top at June. And I think it was late June at that, almost July, where they went to another platform, and then we had to submit the invoice all over again, and they needed certain credentials to do that, and we had submitted all of our paperwork, but the case manager that was attached to our portfolio at the time, they had a turnover thing, so they ran it back through the system, and nobody in General Mills could expedite our payment, and so we're stuck, or we're chasing people literally still to get paid off of a service that you provided. It really sucks. So that's what earlier when I was like, entrepreneurship can be ghetto. Just meaning you really, so there, I feel like there's a big misconception sometimes, or there's a glorification with, okay, I'm a business owner. Yeah, but who are you responsible for?
Yeah.
Because I'm responsible for people's livelihood. And it's one of those things where, yeah, it may just be chips and salsa to someone, but it's how somebody feeds their food, and we pay well. So we're not paying $5 to $10 an hour. I wanted to build a structure where it was not only a livable wage, but a sustainable wage. And hopefully, Lord willing, in 2024, we'll be able to enter the healthcare field where we'll be able to provide those things. And we have clear career paths. But it's such a space that we don't talk about. So I'm very appreciative to the financial pieces that you all provide, or even being able to create a service from 12, both of you, where it's like, yo, I'm gonna hit these flyers and things, and oh, okay, I can make this work. And so yeah, like there's so much more in the industry.
So y'all talk about your horror stories. Like, what did you learn from it, and how did you move forward to avoid that?
One, being as proactive as possible in getting the documentation I need, and understanding what documentation I need came from seeking out help. And so pretty much everything I've done up until recently was kind of bootstrapped, building the plane as I flew it, and figuring it out. However, I have become conscious of the fact that seeking out professional help is probably the easiest and cheapest way to be successful. Otherwise, you're going to always be chasing down invoices or not understanding you need to file a certain thing with a certain entity.
I think the irony of that is crazy, because I feel like people avoid professional help because
They
of
don't
the
wanna pay the
price.
money.
And you saying where you are now, man, I wish I would have just paid that up front instead
Pay
of
the
wasting my time and money to find out the hard way.
Yeah. And because, again, tax code changes,
Sure do.
business requirements change in terms of what you can and can't deduct and what happens. Section 174, I'm seeing that all over the internet right now. I can barely understand what that means. That's taking time away from me being in my zone of genius for something that can potentially cost me my business or my livelihood later. So I would rather just pay somebody and go through the vetting process and make sure they understand. But I don't want to have to execute none of that stuff.
How about you?
Contracts.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of money on the front end. Still losing money. Not as much now, but contracts, like having, you got a great granola brand and we want these demos. So off of good faith, all right, you got this brand, we got people. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and execute. And even though I have all of your collateral, and I have on your swag, and I'm in store and I'm doing these demos, you technically, because we don't have a contract, you can sit up here and say like, well, I never asked you to do it. Bro, I got on all your stuff. Sorry, I'm all amped up. But I have on all of your stuff. What do you mean you didn't ask me to do it? I got a paper trail in writing, and I had it was a $10,000 bill. Because it costs money to do these demos, and we got there pretty quickly because they wanted to be aggressive in getting their name out there. But they contested, like, oh no, we never asked you to do our demos. We never asked you to represent us in store. But I have all of your literature. Like, I have all of your info. What do you mean? How would I get this? Did I make it?
Right.
And there was at a point nothing that we could do. Or we dealt with a really great company, but they scaled too fast. They went out of business and they didn't pay their bill.
Yeah.
What we supposed to do with that?
Right.
And I had a contract in place. But if you go out of business, like those things are just.
And another thing, within big corporations, like the person you may have started the conversation with is not the person you finish with.
Right.
So again, that contract holds the company liable, not
but you
just
gotta know how to use that contract.
exactly.
And multiple of people have said right now, or specifically you were saying like, all right, now that now we're going to implement those fees on that late invoice. Now I need to issue you a re-invoice on that, or there's a point of contact person that, like you mentioned, that we talk to, but then there's another person that's responsible for the accounts payable pieces. Okay, am I a rainmaker? Like, I'm trying to run my business, get in new clients, and then go manage my invoices and my people and build these relationships. It becomes a lot of things to do.
And then by 6, 7 p.m., you just like, I don't want to do the other stuff I need to do.
Or at 6, 7 p.m., because you've done all of the other things, I find myself at times like, yo, I didn't work today. But all of it goes into, like, it's a mental capacity and mindset. So even if I'm transparent, coming into literally waking up, I am bi-coastal, if you will. Like, from the time that I wake up, I think about, okay, who's on the East Coast, who's mountain, who's central, and then who's Pacific. Like, who and how to prioritize my response to my emails.
Right.
Or how late do I need to stay up to talk to our Australian client? Like, what time zone are they in? Or from
God bless
people
you.
that are, oh my I'm just saying, like, all of those things, they definitely matter and they make a big difference.
If I could jump in real quick, a question I would just ask myself, and I ask myself this all the time, is like, would I rather just spend the $1,000 up front to figure out the things I need to do, or like spend $10,000 in litigation trying to fix it? Like, if I would much rather spend $1,000 up front, I'm gonna do that. And if I'm not in a position to do that up front, maybe it's something I don't need to be doing. And that goes back to like, you know, if you're in a position where you have to take money out the business, especially early on, I just don't think I'm a little more conservative now that I'm getting older. I just don't think you should do it full time. Like if you're in a position where you have to take money out, because especially in the beginning, like businesses can be cash intensive,
Right.
And you know, it takes a while to get to sustenance.
No, I love that too, because I think naturally we sometimes treat our businesses like we treat our own homes. And again, like when my oven breaks, you know, I'm gonna figure out how to fix this. Like, no, business is not that way, because I mean, you're just living in a house, right? Like the time spent would have been taken away from watching whatever show you watching. But when you're in a business, then you got to take time away from the operations to go do taxes for the first time when you know you failed Algebra 1. You know what I mean? Like, you ain't got no business doing that. Pawn that off, pay the money, don't deal with it on the back end.
I also think resources, right? So depending on the communities that we come from, or just when I got into business, like, oh, I need a CPA because I didn't want this.
Right.
I came from corporate, and I remember climbing the corporate ladder in a male white driven industry in a recruitment space. And I remember going into like, oh, I'm not gonna get promoted here. Not because I wasn't qualified, because there was someone else, because I became a mother for the second time. I'm no longer available as they needed me to be more flexible. So being a woman and a mother for the second time made me no longer appealing to get that particular promotion, because I couldn't be as flexible. Wait, what? Right? And so I didn't have to think about those particular things in business. And so transferring from a W-2 to that point to a 1099, and where now I need to be accountable. Why do I need a CPA? My taxes were, I'm not going to get a return. What is a K1, K9? And at that point, the CPA that I had, they kept my taxes together. So I didn't have a K1. I didn't even know what that was, because I didn't choose the business. I went from a side hustle.
Right.
And I had some 1099s, but my W-2s carried me. So I could just blend that in. And then when we became a full-fledged LLC, there's still such a gap. And then they retired. Like, boop, I'm retiring. Wait, come back, because I don't know nothing else. Wait, I didn't really manage this thing, you know? So, yeah.
And I guess just to add just a little bit to the idea of like even just the fees, right? Just looking at that, I think if you have the right people in place, they're saving you so much more money.
Period.
It's almost a no-brainer, where like I have business owners who will come in and be like, oh man, I've been doing my taxes myself. I never knew I could do deducting that and deduct that and deduct that and deduct that. And they're coming out with so much more than if they just try to do it themselves. And then same thing when it comes to planning. So just looking at it like we talked about at the beginning, like these are your partners in business, right? So it's kind of like you wouldn't build the house without those different people. We always say it takes a village to raise a child, right? But it takes a village also to raise your business. Like you can't do it by yourself.
Right.
So I think just recognizing the value in those people and paying them what they're worth, right? Like in the sense of, I'm not going to ask no one sitting on this couch for a little discount just because of whatever. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There may be situations where I cannot compensate you right away. Like I have somebody who was talking about branding. I'm like, I love your idea. I love all those things. But when I look at where my business is right now and where you are, you're in a higher level where I don't know if I can necessarily compensate you. So is there someone else that you would maybe refer me to? Or is there a different, how do you work? Where she was kind of came back, well, hey, instead, let's structure it different. I would normally charge that because the person's doing da-da-da-da. But if you want to kind of do more self-led stuff, I'd be more than willing to kind of guide you in that direction, and you can still pay me X. And for me, it's like, okay, is that fair? Because I just want to be fair, because I'm in the same position, right? I don't want anyone to come out and take my legs from under me and give them all my knowledge for free either, but I want to be fair. So I think just understanding, meeting people where they are, figuring out what makes, and then just being fair with each other. But like you said, also resources. Even as I look on the couch, I'm like, wow, these are resources that I now have going forward that I can reach out to also ask certain questions or kind of move the dial. And if I hear something, oh, hey, actually, let me see this other person, they may be able to help you, and also refer out that business in that manner too, I think is a big thing too.
When you make yourself resourceful, then you will get those resources that you're looking for. And so maybe that's not money, maybe it's time, maybe it's energy, maybe it's like, I know such and such. I'm not that person. It's not in my wheelhouse, but give me a moment. But you have to find people that you can trust.
Exactly.
I've been burnt by a lot of people, as we may have in different situations. have, we're in, if they look like us or not, it's like finding those people in my business. People, I've had ops people get excited about the potential of what we can earn in Texas, because Texas is our mothership, and they ran with that. And so they would do subtle things here and there to make shifts. And then if I'm not paying attention, you miss it, because they're little small things that can rob you blind big.
Man,
And I learned the hard way with those particular things. And then after I'm looking at these invoices for, we're hiring, and I'm looking at all of these invoices for my back end people and overhead, and I'm like, wait, why am I spending $700-800? That's $1,000. We didn't hire nobody. People riding the clock. Riding the clock. That's unproductive time when I'm a service-based business. And none of the people that you said we hired, we didn't hire, but your mom and them was working this job. So that just went back into your household because they needed a job. So I think all of those things are like, they matter, whether it's mentors or networking to make yourself available. Your network will also put into what you're worth a little bit, but like steel sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron. So I think there's a multitude of things that are just sitting before us that are just amazing.
Man, it's heating up in here. I love it. We're getting a good conversation. No.
I mean, are we just
We,
warming up?
we don't take no breaks. Come on now. We going straight through. Question for you now, Refine. Oops, excuse me. Did I mess it up? Okay, cool. Refine, question for you. Because you said something very interesting before we got on camera. Levels of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break that down for the people at home?
And y'all chime in too.
Yeah.
So what I mean, so for me, there are, in my industry, so there's freelancing, which is cool. Like, hey, I'm working for this said company. I want to just show up. I want to execute this whatever thing that I'm doing. I want to go home. I don't want to do no background paperwork, no back end paperwork. Mm-hmm. There are, so from the freelancing side of things to independent contractor, that could potentially be deemed differently in a mental mindset.
Is independent contractor fall into freelancing?
It can. Okay. I definitely think it. Yeah, 100%. But you can also think about it differently. Where you, a 1099 could also be, I'm an entrepreneur, but I lead a team, or I do project management, or I'm a field manager. So I have some brand ambassadors underneath me. I'm the direct contact for this particular region. And I have like a storage unit, if you would, and then I can pick out my team.
Right.
And in my mind, though I love all of that, been there, done it all. Now I'm responsible for people's livelihoods. I think that's a different level of entrepreneurship, where you have to, yeah, it's me and mom holding me down. I got this one business. I have several businesses now, and one of them in particular, if I don't show up, my company don't run. Like, it does, but at the same time, like, for me, there's a certain level of expectation that's on me, even to delegate. Like you mentioned, I've been taking phone calls and texting my people and voice noting because I want to make sure that I'm setting them up for success. And literally, if I don't do my job or be a rainmaker or nourish those relationships that I have with these retailers, then we can't expand into different territories. Right. We can't continue to hire. And so one of the biggest things is, I'm very proud to partner with veterans now to bring a sustainable workforce to them, with colleges and universities as we're going into different communities. If I'm responsible for a couple of things. So I can't just wake up and feel fancy free. I'm like, I want to answer that email. What if they wanted to expand in the Midwest? Right. And because I didn't answer that email or whatever, now not only do I not have a job, but then my whole company gets fired. Right. Where I'm supposed to work?
So it's just more kind of from a business perspective, the differences and the levels is more mouths to feed, more people to think about.
I feel like it's more lives to feed, more people to think about, like, if I want to have a career path. So I can decide to just, okay, I'm a brand ambassador and I'm hiring a bunch of people, but I wanted to be able to provide them more. So I had a bigger vision for my business as I continue to work it, where I do want to talk about retirement or short-term disability if I need it, or malpractice insurance, not malpractice, workman's comp if someone gets hurt, or what's an IRA? Like, can we invest funds into different things? I think all of those, I didn't have to think about that when it was just me. But if it's all of us, and now you're now a regional manager. Okay, well, what does that mean? What does that scale look like? And now I need to be very clear in my description and what you are over. And I think that just moves us into a different field.
Anybody want to chime in on that as well?
Sounds like a lot more pressure.
Oh my God, it's so much more pressure.
I guess
it's a lot more pressure.
I would be interested to hear, like, especially from, like, how do you balance it? right? Because I feel like that's a lot. Like you said, it's levels. But on different
Look.
levels, it's a different
I asked the
level.
questions.
Oh,
bro.
sorry.
So what you
Sorry, I didn't-
Now I'm playing with you. No, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I'm just wondering because the way what I'm hearing is that when it's just it's one way, it's one thing you have to focus on, but then it's kind of like as you start adding more puzzles into the piece, you have to do more, but then it also seems like a little bit more stressful because it goes back to kind of what he mentioned as far as, hey, do I make this decision? Do I pay my mortgage or do I pay Sally Sue?
Yeah.
But I feel like also as people in general, it's kind of like how do you have to figure out some way to balance it.
So I believe in, so that's a lot of time in therapy. Just say, hey,
it's a real response.
I'm a first generation entrepreneur, and I didn't know what that meant. So I remember, I wasn't 12, but y'all, but I remember, I had to think about this differently. I remember watching my grandfather and my grandmother go to work every day, and they were more of like baby boomers around that time frame. And my granddad worked 45 years on his job, and he retired with a pen. And I was like, there is absolutely no way that you don't own nothing. You mean you went to work forever? What did you get? You know what I'm saying? Like he was one of 13 kids, and so for him just to be able to take his family out to eat was a big thing for him. Yeah, no, hold on now. How you still working for people 45 years in your industry? I'm not that person, and he didn't want to manage, and so to that point, it is heavy. It can be heavy, and I had to learn not to. I don't believe in balance anymore. Through therapy, what I understood is balance is like you're on think about it, a circus. You're on a unicycle and you're spinning plates or you're juggling. Something is going to fall at some point. And so the big shift for me is when I thought about my life in rhythm, ebbs and flows. That's Venus and Serena playing at the top of their game. And they're like, they can't do the same thing at the same time. If they both in the front court, who is covering my back?
Yeah.
And so it's like learning what that means is I'm not going to be on a 9 to 5 sleep schedule or whatever that is. I can't go to sleep every night at 8:00. Sometimes I may need to be up at 1 and put my kids to sleep and now go back to work because this person is up on this time zone. So I learned to give myself more grace. And also, if you think about a cruise ship, if I'm running against that wave, I'm seasick. Like the boat rocks a lot harder if you're going against the grain. So what I've done to that point, I'm so sorry to be long-winded. I told my kids,
all the wind you want.
Hey, wind, come on, wind beneath my wings. But what I did is something simple. My boys' birthdays are in August. So I said, hey, I love y'all. We're going to say happy birthday on your birthday, but August isn't a good month for me. No, facts though.
I had Christmas in February
one
time. So
Christmas is about to be in February again. But I mean that to my core. I had to understand my business and I was stressing myself out trying to be everything to everybody. In August don't work. August is seasons for us. It's festivals. I'm traveling right in the middle of the summer and in August. So I celebrated with them. But I asked, hey, do you mind if I move your birthday? We're going to celebrate big, y'all, in September. Right? Because I couldn't. And then I was transparent with them this year. I was like, December don't work for me. I love y'all. We going to celebrate Christmas in like January, February. So to that point, rhythm works best for me. And then knowing when to, I'm not everything to everybody. But I still do hold a lot of weight. And if I'm going to be, I am a rainmaker. I am a creator. I'm a trailblazer in my own right. And I can move the world by doing it in my own bubble. And like that's huge. Like you can be so monumentally, I don't want to be famous. I want to be influential. I want to be impactful in my purpose. And I don't want to do busy work. I want to do something where at the end of the day, when I take my last breath, it's like, it was worth it. And she did something for something greater than herself. This life is not our own. It's just a gift. And I don't think we're put on this earth just to exist.
I swear you're going to catch a record deal by the end of this podcast.
I pray so, Lord. But I'm just saying, though, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to be grammatically incorrect on purpose. I was a young mom, and statistics and society says you shouldn't make it. Well, I'm no longer a young mom. Now what? You can't let that be your whole story. You a teenage mom, by what? Great. What's next? Merry Christmas, you had a baby. What's next? Or Merry Christmas, you had an obstacle. Okay, well, now I can take that obstacle and make it an opportunity and flip.
So real quick, I want to jump in and just add to this point because you laid it out beautifully. But We're talking about like side hustle to CEO, and going back to also your question, like I really think it just comes down to self-awareness and what you want to build. Because we can talk about all these different businesses and levels of business, but like, is that what you really want? Like, do you want to be responsible for people's livelihoods, or do you just want to, steer your own destiny or be in control of your own schedule?
Dog, some people
what I mean?
belong in the 9 to 5, and it's okay, to be honest.
Or
We
even
need-
being a freelancer or
Right.
independent contractor,
level,
where
whatever it is.
you can dictate what your day looks like, but you're
Yeah.
not responsible for other families.
Everybody.
and go to bed at certain times.
That's it.
Like, look, if you don't make X amount of money this month, you are okay with it.
You're okay with that.
You are just taking care of yourself.
That's it,
100%.
like-
I think that's huge. I think a lot of people
it's
don't
awesome.
realize it.
Sign me up
Because
for that.
we can't all be business owners, right? Like, we literally need to hire people.
Or
Like,
no,
some-
or to his point, what
Right.
he's saying is like you can be, everybody can be, you can be a business owner, but you have to decide. What I heard you say is you just have to decide what business owner
Right.
you want to be,
Exactly.
and you can
What
be
works
the
for your
best at
lifestyle.
that. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to. That was my choice. You know what I'm saying? Like I made the decision to want to go manage people. Not really. I mean, it kind of fell into my lap, and then they were like,
now
"Yo,
you
right,
got to deal with
right,
it.
like, hey, bro, you doing it, we doing it." Now that created a sense of like, now I'm responsible for scheduling, and so like, no, I didn't mean to stop you. Keep expanding on that, but that's so real.
And to that, like, you're making the choice every day to continue, right? Like, because you can get to a point where you're only responsible for yourself, or you can get to a point where you've built something where like you can't leave without a succession plan.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't need that type of pressure. Everybody don't want
Right.
that responsibility. And so you just got to be conscious of that. Like, we may think we want something substantial,
Right.
but maybe we just want to have control of our schedule. We be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. And that's your lifestyle, right? Like I have a business that I'm not going to talk too much detail of it, but I have a business that's kind of more, I would say, on the contracting level, where I do hire people, but I make sure I hire people with other stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be responsible
wanna
for
be
your
their own
incomes.
thing- their
Because
own
it's
thing.
not my main thing I got going on. So I want to make sure that, like, hey, if we don't run a couple football camps this month, like, y'all not looking at me like, damn, I'm gonna quit and go do something else. Like, y'all know this is kind of y'all side hustles.
But oh no,
And also,
And I can keep it seasonal. And I maybe at some point, because again, wealth management is my thing. I don't actually want this to grow. This is kind of a passion project. I'm okay with, leaving the revenue here and kind of being steady every year. I'm okay with that.
And that's why some people hire contractors and not
Right.
employees.
Right, exactly. Exactly why I hire a contract unemployed. They pay no health insurance for somebody to come make $2,000 a year. What? No.
Yeah. So just know what you want. That was kind of the moral of it.
so if you don't know what you want, not that I'm asking your questions now.
Everybody just doing
right.
it.
Come on, because we
I
in,
should
we
just
in our
walk
bag.
out.
No,
Yeah.
stay,
Let
stay.
me go get some pizza while y'all just go ahead.
It's kind
Hold
of
this
like I didn't know. So for me, I didn't know. I didn't want this part, but I'm good at those things. And so what I found myself is because I was good to people, then they wanted to stay.
Yeah.
They were like, "Yo, you really like you mentioned earlier. Did you see something in our industries where there was a gap or like, oh, I can do this better than such and such?" Yes. I realized that the people were like standing there sitting on their phones, or they weren't personable. They didn't know the brand that was in front of them, and that people were mean to their people. Like they didn't care about their schedules, what they needed. And so I decided to make that pivot and ask them like, hey, how can I support you? Like, what are your bigger goals? Inspire may not be your only thing. What do you want to do long term? And I found that the more I did that and was great to people, then they were like, yo, what you need? Yo, now we want to rock with you. Like my longest person, I've been in business for 8, almost 9 years. My longest person's been here 7 years this year. And she don't want to work nowhere else. And I can call her and be like, yo, at 3:45, bro, we going to the moon. And I got your ticket paid for. And she was like, give me 17 seconds to get my bag. I'll meet you on the pad.
Already packed.
You know what I'm
What's up?
saying?
What
Like,
we
I
doing?
think, but you also, that it's your responsibility to build your brand story if you're going to have that type of belief system. And I didn't know what I wanted, but it was me sitting down and saying like, okay, God, what's next? And that was just for me and how my belief system and what I decided at those points, because I want to quit every day.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, don't lie. Like you can't, I don't know nobody that's running a business, whether it's by yourself or like working your regular job, that you don't be like, yo, today may be the day. I may quit this thing 9 to 5 or whatever.
Finna cuss everybody
Don't
out and walk out that
lie.
mouth.
And
I'm
that
just saying.
that goes to the point, right? Like, are you the type of person who, when you feel like that, do you execute and actually quit?
Yeah.
Because some people will build some substantial, just be like, all right, I'll drop it.
Yep.
But have no plan for like how to pick up the pieces or how to have somebody succeed them. And so, knowing who you are and what you want, I think is important for when you get to that point. Like what happens once you do feel those emotions, because they're gonna come.
But I think you hit it the hardest as far as just knowing yourself in general. Even that self-awareness is big, because then when you don't know what you want or who you could be, people will exercise that belief onto you.
Mhm.
And now you're stuck in a situation. Sometimes it ends up positive, right? In your situation where it's like a good situation, but sometimes you're in a situation you did not want to be in. You're leading all these people and people are like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, it's not. And I think it could be very positive and like it just works out that way if you're falling in that direction. But for some people, like I have no certain business owners, they're like, I was not planning on it being this big. Like it's
Right.
definitely, I just started
That's
off
just
with just
inertia.
me doing
Yeah.
it. And then I'm just a good person. So people were naturally gravitating towards me. But Kadia, this is not my interest. Like, I want to put myself in a situation where, hey, eventually this is going to be passed on to somebody else, or eventually this is going to move into. So I feel like that self-awareness, I mean, that's the biggest thing, no matter who you are, or even if you're a small business, if you're doing your own thing, whatever it is, if you don't know who you are, somebody will make you into somebody that you did not plan on being.
That, and I believe evolution is impossible, right? So 19-year-old me is not the same as 30-year-old me, and it's
100%.
not 40-year-old. So what I want and or who I am or to become may have shifted,
Exactly.
right? Like
And
operating,
that's okay. I feel like that's
like
big.
we got to give ourselves grace, men and women, in that space to evolve and understand what you want, or to say it's okay to be like, yo, no, I don't want that no more.
I mean,
But it's also our responsibility to
And make that known.
make that known, and how do we handle it?
Because your brand is still lingering from what it was before. So you got to make sure it's known now that this is what I do, this is what I want.
That boundaries, and again, for me, it was therapy, but that boundaries, learning your worth, learning when to say no, learning that I no longer have to prove myself.
Yeah.
I'm established at something, and knowing what that is, where I don't have to sell it, and being able to step away, or being responsible. And not only don't lead with my emotions. What's the facts of this thing? My emotions make me quit, walk out. Right? Like our emotions are like, it makes us feel different when we're emotional. Like I'm irrational if I lead with my emotions.
Yeah.
If I lead with facts, then I take an opportunity. Let me go evolve in my rhythm. I may need to take a break. I'm tired. I'm gonna go take a nap. I'm gonna schedule, like I think that there's just more to it.
And I think sometimes people need to just hire a CEO. Like sometimes people, they're just good at doing stuff.
Listen.
And especially like in our culture, everybody wants to keep everything so tight.
Yeah.
Like I own 100%. I'm doing all this by myself. I put it on my back. I'm doing all these things. And then they down here when they could, be their exit next level. If they do like every other business,
You could own
like,
half of it and be 4 times as big, right?
Yeah.
hire a CEO. You can't afford one. Get a co-founder. That's what startups do. Like very rarely do successful startups just start with just one person.
Right.
The biggest companies, Microsoft, Apple. They started with one guy with the idea and the skills. The other guy that had the business knowledge and wanted to do
Right.
it, or the guy that can make the connections, the person that can get you in front of the people so you can get the contracts.
Right.
So I think.
No, to that point, like knowing your superpower, which we've kind of been like pointing to that the entire time. Like leave me alone. Let me go do the people. I call it kissing babies and hugging grown people.
Yes.
I love that part. That's natural to me. Managing the relationship is natural. I'm going to have that inside intel, and I'm going to be able to tell you all the things that, hey, come here, let me talk to you. This is what we need to do, X, Y, and Z. I don't necessarily want to go do the next thing with the next menstrual pad company. I don't want to do that. Just tell me where I need to show up. So I like that with being very vocal about maybe you just need to hire, maybe knowing our business or ourselves is you need to hire a president. You need to have clear operational roles, or like you mentioned, having, what did you say,
Entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs in your companies, or whatever that looks like, but hiring qualified people and not just people that are like-minded.
Right.
Because if I'm hiring someone that's like-minded, we both got the same thing, we ain't getting nothing done.
That's why these white boardrooms get in trouble all the time. You know what I mean?
And I think
Not
even
enough
just,
diversity in them rooms.
even
Yeah.
just to add, like I heard something just recently about how our community is like the least to franchise something because we always want to start fresh.
Yeah.
And even that is like, it was a big deal because this person,
Yeah.
they were like a franchise. That's what they did and they were saying out of all the communities, we always want to just start fresh. I want my own. It literally could be the exact same idea, rebuilding the wheel like 100 times, but literally there's so many companies that are doing the exact same thing, exact same chicken and waffles, exact same whatever it is.
This my
but
mama
no,
barbecue
we're
recipe,
doing
and
it.
I
We're
ain't
doing
giving
it.
it up.
Yeah, but when you look inside and you really open up and peel back the business, you're like, but they're doing, if you would have just the amount of money that you
This
just
could have been
spent
you.
in trying
Yeah.
to make this and start it and do all these things,
mistakes.
it could have been so much better. But everybody wants to be, like you said, like that CEO that is in charge of everything and did every part, where in reality, you
Yeah.
could have just added something, your flavor in your neighborhood, or your area, area, but it could have still been that same franchise.
Just like Mr. McDowell.
So,
He ain't
yeah.
want a franchise, and that's why you don't see no more restaurant. McDonald's, they took over.
No, real thing. They got a McCharlie's in California. It still kill me every time. It's like a vegan McDonald's.
What's a Big Charlie's? That sounds ghetto. What is this?
It's in downtown Los Angeles. It's like a vegan McDonald's. I'm not vegan, so I've eaten there, but it's crazy. It's just like McDowell's, but it's vegan. It's hilarious. But
I think it's like a lowercase m instead of the big M.
It's got like an M with like some X's for the eyes. It's some LA stuff.
I don't know how you get away with that against McDonald's, but anyway.
It's some LA stuff. But one thing I wanted to say, I think what you're talking about with the franchising, it comes down to like what's your why too. Because like it's like, are you in business just to be in business, or are you in business because you're like a purpose? And what is that purpose? And is it something else you can align with? Because like when you think about like somebody that's just in business, like a franchise is a perfect opportunity. It's a proven model.
Right.
If you can make the numbers work and get into it, you can scale it. It's
Really just got to get in and start peddling.
Versus someone who's like, has a purpose or a passion for why they're doing a certain thing, which might not even be a business. It might just be the driving force that you build other things around to make it a business. It might be a little different.
Yeah.
Question for you, because off of this topic we talked about a little bit. When do you realize it's time to delegate another task?
For me now, in my old age, from the beginning, when it's just something that, I can't do, like for me, like example, social media, like I could do it. I'm not a social media person, but it's like to make one post, it take me like an hour. I might, even if I got the content pre-planned, it's like, dang, what's the caption of? Dang, who should I tag?
Right.
It's just like taking forever when it's like, man, I could have spent this hour working on the client project. Or even when it's like me, like, I offer like tax services, but I hate doing taxes. Like I do it when people ask and stuff like that because I have like business clients, so you want to be full service. But, I have another CPA where I say, hey, 80% of the taxes I'm going to give to you. Even though you're making most of the money, I can spend the time doing the things that I am that I like to do, because if I like doing it, I'm gonna do a much better job at it.
Right.
Taxes and stuff for me is boring. It's not what I like to do. Some people, they just like to crank it out and make money. Me, I like to like have purpose with my work. So doing the strategic things, I can spend more time on those projects with those clients when I have people that can do the bookkeeping, the mundane, do research on the transaction. I can just supervise their work because that's the type of background I have. Anyway.
So it's not only for you the things that make sense money wise for you to be doing, but it's also stuff you just can't stand doing. Like it might generate a lot of money, but you're like, I'm not finna waste my life doing that. Yeah,
and I know like nowadays, like a lot of people, they want to brand because people just want full service, right? Especially if you're like in consulting realm, like I am. Like it's like, well, a lot of clients keep asking for this. I can't do it. I know somebody, so why not form a partnership with somebody and contract this out to them so I can win more projects, right? Because it's like, okay, well, we can go to you and we can get one service, or we can go to somebody else and they have all these people in-house on their firm. So it's a lot harder to compete, like at least in our space on the consulting side of things,
you gotta
when you're not full service. And it's like if you're trying to do all of these things where it's like, okay, well, this is what people want, so I need to learn how to do this and learn how to do this and try to do this. And you might be able to do it, but it's not the most effective use of your time. You should just make less money, hire somebody else to do it, because ultimately you're going to see more profit when you're doing the things that you're good at. 'Cause you can be out, like you said, shaking hands, kissing babies. Yeah. Somebody else in here managing these employees, doing this work, whatever it is. So that's just.
I think about it like I got a lifetime membership, and I think about lifetime versus anytime, right? Like anytime you going in there to live. Oh, you need to use the bathroom? Nah. Oh, you want some hot towels? Nah. You want, you want a hot tub, sauna, recovery? You want nutrition? Nah. But lifetime is one of them spots. They're expensive, and people are like, oh man, like, why am I paying all this money? But some days, especially when I was still playing ball, it's nice to be able to hop in the hot tub, cold tub. It's nice to have some towels ready because I got work after. It's nice to have clean gym equipment. It's nice to have some classes. It's nice to have yoga. It's nice to have all this. And that's why their spots are a lot bigger and they're more of a profitable business. And some of these small businesses, like, this is what we do, which is fine. There's realms for that, right? But some people do want that place. They come one time, pay one fee, and get a myriad of products.
I will say too, though, like, I think most people, when they feel like they need to delegate, are willing to delegate. And if they can afford it, are willing to figure out how to delegate, pay for consulting to figure that out. But if you just aren't in a position to delegate, I do think you still need some help. And so the way I look at things, and again, I'm historically bad at delegating, so take this with a grain of salt. But I can speak to this. So I try to look at things on a matrix now. in terms of the x-axis being like hardest to do, and these are tasks within the business. Hardest to do on the x-axis, going down to the easiest to do. Then the y-axis is like highest impact, lowest impact. And I try to like organize where my tasks fall, whether that's designing something, whether that's invoicing, whether that's editing something, like what is easiest for me to do or versus hardest, and what's highest and low impact. And then like the things that are easiest and the highest impact, I'll focus on first. So that's that quadrant. And the things that are like the hardest and have the lowest impact, I usually just don't do them. And the truth of the matter is, like, until you get to a certain point, you can get away with that. Like, you don't have to necessarily do everything or do everything right early on until you get in a position where you can put people in place to do it. Like, because I have seen people kind of use that as a crutch. Like, I don't have help. I can't find a co-founder. I can't find somebody to do X amount of things. So I just either won't start or, I'm going to hold myself back. And I do think that there's value in kind of starting where you are, but just understanding how to prioritize what's required.
Yeah. I respectfully disagree with what you started with, saying how most people would like to delegate, because I'm one of those control freaks that it took me a long time to learn how to delegate and be okay with it. Because again, kind of like you said, that you feel like you can solve any problem. I feel like the way I want to do things is the best way. And I feel like if I'm not in the room when a decision or something is being made, mailed out, provided, it's not going to be A1. And I think what I had to learn is that not everything in your business needs to be A+ work all the time or done by you to be done completed, right? So for example, let's talk about my wealth management business. Wealth management, I sit down I do prep work for the meeting. I'll sit down and have a meeting with the client, and then I'll execute and then send a follow-up letter on what I did. That could be, that used to take me a good 5-6 hours to do all of those, right? I've delegated the prep work now. Somebody collects the information for me. That was tough because man, you don't know what to ask, because I was in that meeting, I know to ask this. Or the follow-up letter, which that used to be an A1 follow-up letter where I just sent, some sweet, I had them with words like, hey, right? Like, yeah, it was great seeing you, blah, blah, blah. That's what we talked about, X, Y, Z. When I've learned, like, you know what? That follow-up letter might be B+ work or B- work, even C work. But like the product as a whole is still going to do well if I'm not the one doing it, because really that's just a bullet point. I need to focus my time in the meeting, making the recommendations, and then making the decisions on what the next steps are, and then going off making the trades X, Y, Z. And that's when I finally realized not everything's going to be done your way, but as long as it's not going to hinder your business as strong, go ahead, delegate that.
So does that lean on that? Can we assume that you're a perfectionist?
I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist.
Not in the back.
I really wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, because sometimes, again, when I'm doing it, I'm like, oh man, this one will be good enough. But just the fact that I'm making that decision, because the thing about being in business for yourself or you having a brand, let's say you have a team behind you, like if somebody messes up, that you're the one getting yelled at.
Oh, absolutely.
It's on you, right? So for me, it's just like, look, if we're gonna get yelled at, I want to get yelled at because I did something, right? Like, when you get in trouble as a kid, like, damn, I should have stole the thing. If you're gonna blame me,
if you said what I did, then give me a second.
Hey, what Keisha gonna say? I should have cheated at this point.
Wait a minute, not necessarily cheated, but
if you gonna blame me for it, but
no, hey,
I wouldn't call myself a perfectionist, even though I do like things done right. But it's more so on the terms of just like, if we gonna go down, I want to be the one going down, taking the last shot and missing it. You know what I mean? But I make a lot of shots, so
Mamba mentality. Talk heavy.
Here's another question, because I know we're coming in on time a little bit, but I think this is important. Steve Harvey he has a lot of clips that go viral, but he had a clip talking about, and I might butcher it, but some along the lines of entrepreneurs like, if you like sleeping, you ain't never gonna be successful. I slept in my car. I was poor. I was this. I was that. And I think one of the beautiful things, which I thought it was, whatever. I'm not going to talk about what I thought it was. I'll let you guys talk about it. But one of the things I thought was interesting about that is I know so many like successful hustlers that started with a safe corporate job that paid their bills. They still lived in a nice condo or had a home, had mortgages, kids, X, Y, Z, and then slowly transitioned their side hustle to a business. And they made it, right? So I guess my thing is like, something's not adding up. Y'all telling us we got to eat ramen noodles, sleep on the couch, but then I don't see that happening all the time. So here's my question. Do you guys feel like you got to struggle and be broke and poor and quit your comfy job and just focus on that one thing to be able to maximize it?
There's more than one way to skin a cat. I know, like, that mentality, at least when I was growing up, that's what was floated around a lot. Like, yeah, I'm sleeping on somebody's couch doing all this stuff to start this business. And people don't really do that anymore. I mean, it's, in my opinion, it depends on the business and what you're doing and how much time you have, but it's a lot more effective. I mean, one, even those people that are doing it, they're out there trying to raise funding because you need capital to start a business. So for someone who doesn't have access to funding or doesn't have an investable business, because not every business, you know, you're going to be able to get startup funding for if it's not going to scale a certain way. So it's like, you know, having capital at the beginning is good. Me personally, I don't want to struggle for nothing I don't need to. like, I'm not doing it. Not saying that I won't sacrifice. Not saying I won't work hard. But it's like I'm not gonna put myself in a bad position because it's gonna be counterproductive. So, I'm more of a fan of what you said. You know, if you already have a job, building it up and making a good transition plan. You know, and transferring over. And it's not saying like there won't be seasons where it's like, you know, well now I'm full time and I need to, you know, I need to stay up for 3 days straight doing stuff to meet deadlines. It's not saying that, but I'm just saying like in general, just like putting everything to the side to start struggling. Unless you got like a whole lot of money and resources saved up to where you can do that, then that's great. But I don't think like it's wise as like a young person starting a business to take that approach.
Right.
For me, I think it's like, what are you doing it for, and where are you starting from, and like what are your goals? Because I used to be the type of person that thought there was a mirror and getting out the mud, right? Especially as a person who don't come from money. Who
Especially if you listen to
stuff
hip
out.
hop too.
That's it.
That's the only way to do it, right?
I used to think there was a
every
mirror in
NBA
that.
player, daddy went to jail or whatever, XYZ. It's like, no, some of these kids from the suburbs,
That's
man.
it.
Like,
And like you said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Like somebody I call to is Jamal Polyhapatia. Basically, he used to be an owner of the Golden State Warriors. So as you can imagine, he got a lot of money. But he started as an early employee in Facebook. And then through the shares of owning Facebook, he became a millionaire. That was a 9-to-5 job. Then he became a venture capitalist, so he's running his own firm, entrepreneur. He just took a role as a CEO of a company because he understands the company, he finds value and they want to grow it. Okay, so if you can see somebody taking all those different avenues to become rich, wealthy, etc., you can see you can do it as an entrepreneur, you can do it within a company, a startup, whatever the case may be. So there's no answer. It's really about like where you starting from and what you're doing it for. Because some people are really in business because they love the game of business, and then some people are in business because they see that you can make a lot of money and they don't see it on the side.
right.
I've just been exposed to like you can make a lot of money in anything, especially in 2024, based on who you know, what you know, what value you can provide to society essentially. So like whatever path to me you can take to be successful if your goal is money. But if you do just love business and you're not starting from money, I mean, maybe you do have to struggle. Maybe you do have to start from the bottom because you don't come from much. But I wouldn't say that you need that to be successful if you're trying to gauge your success off money. But if you just love the game of business and you want to struggle in that, I think that's just a different question.
Yeah.
Oh, now I got it. My bad. I was, I didn't talk
Well,
a lot.
I just.
I mean, you're not wrong. I don't really know what that was about, but more like it is. It honestly is more than one way to come up with to how to skin a cat. But to that point, what do you love about the game? Like, I mean, at the end of how do I want to say that? You don't necessarily have to struggle, but I think you create your own path as you go throughout and find what your hustle, and if you even want to be a CEO, like you mentioned, you don't have to be a CEO, you can be a co-founder, and maybe that co-founder is I'm a silent partner where I just invested my money and y'all gonna get, and I sit in on a couple of meetings,
If that.
if that, like, hey bro, just
Yeah, y'all got
you know what I'm saying, like but now I'm a part of it, which I've seen or now heard of a lot of people being partners in things, and so now they're moving in silence, but they own a lot of stuff, they got a lot of assets in their hands and things, but you would never know that they're in business and have different partnerships. No, you don't have to go broke, and you don't necessarily have to have a lot of money to start a business, depending on what type of business that you want to go into. My life was just a little bit different. I went ahead and took that leap of faith, but I wanted time back though with my kids, and so my why was a little bit different at that moment. I didn't like traveling 2 hours inner city to go to work and come home and take care of a little kid. Like, eventually I was like, man, forget it. I'm making more money on my side hustle, and that money gonna come quicker. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do this.
And you know how to grow it faster too. So he was like, you know what, let me
get more. Yeah, I started professionally running, and if I was a brand ambassador, again, solving problems and solutions, if I can be a brand ambassador for the companies that I'm running with, then I can get a check, and then I can go do something I love, run, tie that thing in. And then, hey, if I understand what your shelf look like, then I can be more valuable, because now I know, like, let me create let me help everybody win, and then that makes me valuable.
That's my favorite type of entrepreneur, by the way. Somebody who just has a hobby. I'm like, man, I can make some money off this.
Yeah,
It's my favorite type. All right. Last question, because I'm not a financial advisor if I don't ask this.
Oh, come on.
How are you guys navigating going from the workspace to having your own business and still trying to remain on track for the exit, whether it's selling the business or retirement? Actually, no, forget selling business. Retirement. How are you guys dealing with retirement savings, putting some away, creating that nest egg still, and not getting into that trap of just playing the income game off your business?
Oh, I am not the first person to lead this. Listen, come on, y'all speak so I can learn some stuff.
New client, Kadia, new client.
Come on, new client, listen, because we need to talk about
Because I mean,
this one right here might take
when we in corporate America, it's so easy to just like, oh, cool, 8% to the 401k, never look at that thing again.
Yeah.
10 years later, it's $500,000, $1 million.
No.
That nothing happens on accident in business. So
No.
I'm gonna give one man's perspective, and y'all can feel free to correct me because I know there's gonna be some wrong stuff here. But I learned from a real estate investor specifically, so there's some bias in there. He didn't invest in an IRA or anything like that because he felt his properties were his retirement. So he could
man, I
sell
can't
his
tell you how many
property.
times I've seen it.
And so I kind of adopted that. So I have a Roth that I contribute to. However, because of my capability and because of what I want, I do feel like my retirement is investing in different income producing assets, whether that's real estate, whether that's other businesses, or whether that's in equities. That is my retirement that I self-direct and I can put my money in and bring it out whenever I want versus like a traditional retirement account that's has a lockup period. That's my approach. But I think it's like super different based on kind of your goals, your risk profile, all that.
So you do have investments though, but for the most part, you're very diversified. You got some real estate, you got some businesses, you got some things that will have value when you're getting ready to sell them, or do you plan on using these income-bearing vehicles for your retirement?
Both. So I'm choosing to direct into things that are relatively liquid versus a traditional retirement account that's locked up until a certain age without penalty. Look into that information.
59 and a half to be exact.
But yeah, I'm just choosing to put my money in things that are more liquid because I know how sporadic business can be.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, like, if I really need this money before I'm 60, I have access to it, within a week's time at least.
So
you know what I mean?
Your long-term bucket and your short-term bucket kind of all in one.
To be honest, they're pretty much mixed. But for something like real estate, for example, that's more locked up.
Oh, yeah,
because
for sure.
I can sell a stock today, but I can't sell my real estate today. And so I'm looking at that as, all right, that's my long-term bucket. But like stocks or even interest in another business, I look at that as something that I can eventually cash out, but not something I can get within a day or two.
How about you?
Yeah, and I'm not a financial advisor.
I love you with the tags. I ain't gonna arrest me.
Yeah, because so I'm more so kind of on the same with Cameron. So like I had the benefit from already having a 401k with a good amount of money in it from my job, so that's in place. But I'm more so focused on alternative investments, primarily real estate, primarily like business. And when I say business, not my business, other businesses, so investments, so not venture capital, not at that level of investing in businesses, but more like angel investing.
Okay.
And just building cash flow assets, so and using that cash flow to build more assets. So that's like the phase that I'm in. So I do like have some things in place as far as like long term and some other vehicles that I'll invest money into just to diversify it a little bit, but primarily right now I'm growing assets in the portfolio and alternative investments.
Right. What percent would you say is real estate? What percent would you say is like stocks, 401ks, XYZ?
Whew, I'll have to add that up, but I'll say probably.
That's how you know he got a lot. He said, hold on.
I don't know the exact percentage, but I'll say like primarily, let's just say 50% is real estate, 25 is 401k, and the other 25 is other types, a mix of other type of investment.
All right, Kadil, what do you recommend as a certified financial planner?
Well, no, but I guess the biggest question is like the automation. Like how is that something that we're doing on like all the time, or is it just, oh hey, I made this money, now I'm gonna do something with it real quick? I think the biggest question there is kind of how consistent are we, and then really are we on track? And being on track meaning, do we have a number that we're kind of going towards and like in hopes for to reach this number And this is my number that when I get there, I know I'm in a safe space. I think that is really important. Just knowing whether we're on track. Because sometimes we're just running, right? Running, but we don't know the end. We don't know the finish line. We don't have anything. So I think that's the benefit when it comes to working with either an advisor or just knowing where you are, right? Knowing whether you're on track or if you need to maybe put something else in place to get you to that other level, right? Do you have some extra income and you can get some extra life insurance and cash value and do all these other things where those are also really good, right? And how much are we protected in those other things, right? So maybe we have real estate, but if something was to happen and there was a disaster, like, are we in a space where we would still be able to come back with something, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just how automatic is that? Is that something that we're doing all the time, or just, every once in a while? And just where are we with that? And do I know my number? I think that's the biggest thing. Is do I know my number that this is what I need to retire tomorrow? And if I decided that I wanted to leave this or whatever, if I pass away, like, is everything prepared in a way that whoever I have after me, am I going to leave something to them, or am I just going to die with all of it? And I think those parts are the important parts of, hey, who am I working with to make sure to put stuff in place that everything looks good? Do I have an estate plan? Do I have, all of that? I think is big when it comes to retirement, because one other thing with that comfort in having that 401k or whatever is knowing that it's going to be tilted properly. So meaning that when you do pass, it is going to the person that you want it to go to. Unless if but for the most part, if you have a significant other, mostly it's going to go to that person. If not, whatever you put on, but they're going to make sure that you had something down to say that something is there. And there's, so it's not just like these accounts that sometimes we may have, and maybe we have somebody on file, but maybe we don't, and if you don't, no one's going to call you and reach out and be like, hey, make sure you have your beneficiaries, So I think it's just that part, just making sure that we're planning well. And sometimes people maybe work with someone and they don't maybe keep the relationship for a long time, but at least that beginning part to make sure, hey, is my number right? Hey, what's my system? Hey, what's my, those things, put it in place. And then whether you decide to keep going or not, I think that's another thing that is important. And I always tell my clients sometimes too, working with us, most of the time, you're paying more on your gym membership than you're really paying, really, when it comes to us.
My gym membership.
For real, lifetime.
I mean, I'm at Lifetime, so I know my gym membership probably costs more than working with somebody who's really going to make sure that I'm good and I'm in a good space. And when I want to buy something, you just call that, hey, do we have enough in the savings to get? I had somebody call me about $100,000 car. Can I buy this? Well, but those are the type of conversations, that you're having, because it's so much out of you're not even, it's not something you're worrying about.
Yeah.
I think that's just the major.
I like what you said. There are two things you said: automation, right? Not necessarily. You didn't talk about what you were putting money into. Is automation. I think when you leave corporate America, you lose the automaticness of just putting money away every check, whether you like it or not. Because it's almost harder to turn off your 401k contributions than it is to turn it on or put it in there. So that automaticness, whatever it is, I don't know. See, I'm over here. I'm trying to be like her. I'm trying to make some words.
Started with a good word.
But that automaticness, the automation, to transfer that into the business world, I think that's huge. And then secondly, you said when you're a business owner, you own more things, right? So now making sure that that's going to other people. Because again, my 401k, it's going to whoever my beneficiary is. I don't know, no trust, will, estate plan really needed. But once you're a business owner, like, who's going to get the business itself? Who's going to, am I leaving the equipment to somebody? Am I leaving this to somebody? Am I leaving the building? Whatever it is, right? Car, XYZ, that's when that becomes more important. So I love that you didn't really talk about product, stock, whatever. You just kind of talked about knowing the automation of it and then understanding the paperwork. We talked about some stuff today. Man, first of all, thank you guys, all four of you guys, for coming. I thought this was really good. We definitely went over time, and I can feel the executive producer over my shoulder saying, wrap it up. But
it was just so good.
It was.
In that last point, can I do one thing on that before we go?
This your show.
Okay, no, it's not. Bullet. She gave me the brow, like, come on, girl. That, like, who you leaving it to and your exit strategy. I think that's the last thing, too, like, especially for me in my business. Like, if I die, does this business die? And if I don't, like, who is my successor and what does that look like? To find the right person with the heart and the passion behind the people, where if you are giving it over or relinquishing ownership and finding and stepping down from what president and CEO, and your role changes, do you lose the integrity of your business? Does it become something that you never thought? And what will that do to you? So I think for as exiting and investments and things like that, that's super important to me, because we're not a moment, we're a movement, and it's a culture that we're creating, and it's not ethnicity.
I'm like,
Come on,
damn.
bars. But for
Look.
real, like it's not ethnicity, it's not race. It's a culture thing for me at Inspire Brand Management, and it comes from the top. And so everybody has their own individualistic energy, but that's important that intellectual property piece does continue. So if I'm dead and gone, Inspire, Encourage, Motivate LLC still moves in that same vein. And so, yeah, I think everything.
Just to add a little piece of that too, you'd be shocked to know that, I mean, you may have an idea of who you want to leave it to or what you want to do, but even just having that conversation,
Yeah.
even just making sure that that's something that they want,
Talk
something
about
that
it.
they're interested
Talk
in.
about
Because you'll be, I mean, how many business owners have you spoken to that are like, oh, the kids are going to take over this.
Kids don't want it.
And the kids are like, what?
I don't
Daddy?
want
I want
that.
you did this so
Right.
that you could send me to college
Yeah.
so that I could get this degree in this engineering. And you think I'm
Yeah.
about to come back and do this restaurant?
Because and they
I'm
didn't
not
see
doing
how
that. It
they
doesn't
didn't
even
see your
match.
they
It
didn't
doesn't
see
even
how
align.
your
Struggle.
like you've been unhappy. Yeah, it's been all
But it
struggle
doesn't
and
align. And not
unhappiness.
only that, you have so many people who do try to leave it to the kids, and maybe the kid does accept it
Running
because they
into the
didn't even
crowd.
know it was for them anyways.
Mhm.
And then the people that are there, they're like, I don't want to work with your child.
Yo,
I didn't
like,
even have no interest. I
Yes.
don't. Their personality is totally because you're not thinking of those things. So it's
Right.
nice to know who,
Mhm.
but it's even
Had that
10
combo.
steps better is to just talk to them and have a conversation and start grooming them in that sense to say, hey,
Right.
you're going to do this. Why don't you come with me? Why don't you sit
Yeah.
in? Why don't you let's start meeting the people? Let's start doing this. So it's like, and even it comes to property. I got some people. This guy, he was telling me he had a $2 billion life insurance policy on himself, and his
billion?
daughter literally told him, yeah, his daughter. Or 2 million, sorry.
I was
His-
finna
yeah,
say.
yeah,
I'm
2 million.
like,
2
what?
million. But his daughter literally
Bankroll
came
it.
to him. No, he's a white man, older white man. But he literally, his daughter came to him and was like, Daddy, I do not want $1. I don't want no money from you. I want all the money that I build, I want it to be from myself. So, and I don't want to wait for you to die to become this, like, have this money. And he's like, he came from nothing. So for him, it was a big deal to have this policy and do this. And his daughter said, she was like, I don't want it. And if you do give it to me, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm giving it to charity. So don't give it to me. And so figure out something else. But because he had a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So if he would have never had that conversation with her and just, oh no, I'm just gonna leave this to little Sally Sue, she would have been like, hello, and it would all went to her brother or something else would have happened depending on the way that they wanted it. So that even changed his mindset. Like,
Yep.
oh, well, I'm building all these things up for my kids, thinking I'm gonna give it to them, and they don't even want this. I'm killing myself to build something up for them, and they're like, sorry to be the bearer of the bad news,
Yeah,
but
because our whys are different. And my struggle ain't your struggle as my kid, and my trauma ain't your trauma. So I may be operating in a space of, oh, I got to do this because I got to prove. Nah, like I
Right.
think conversation is cool, and don't be afraid to give
Right.
it away.
Look, Michael Jordan's son can't hoop. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yes, I think that's important.
Kadia, where can they find you?
Ooh, great one. So on Instagram, the Kadia Michelle. And then if you Google me, Kadia Michelle, KHADIA, you can find me because I am really the only one in finance with this
Come
name.
on.
So yes, you can find me there.
Gabriel, where they find you at, man?
You can Google me, Gabriel Beasley. B is a Victor, not B like Beasley. Instagram is Gabriel the Angel Investor, or you can go to GabrielBeasley.com.
Cameron?
I would say you can Google me, but you might not find me if you do that. So you
Sound
go,
good, though. Sound good.
You can
Go
go
ahead,
to
Google.
the Cam Caldwell, TheCamCaldwell.com to find out more about me. TheCamCaldwell.com. Put a little thing at the bottom.
Raffinay, how many places can they find you?
Since we're here, let's create this experience. InspireBrandManagement.com.
And we're going to put it right
gonna
here
put it-
across. Yeah, right here across the
So
screen.
www.inspirebrandmanagement.com. So you can Google that in your search engines. Also, Raffinay Lawan, if it's your social media handle. So RAFF, like French fry. FFINAE.
I had to think about it. I'm like, hold up.
Yeah, because if you say Raffinay, some people be like, yo, SS. No, bro, it's not Raffinay, it's Raffinay. But sorry. So Raffinay Lawan, LAJUAN on social media handles, or Google Raffinay Lawan or Raffinay Sanders. Both will come up. But yeah, or Woombly. Go look up Woombly, y'all. Like WOMBILEE. But Inspire Brand Management, Raffinay Lawan, Raffinay Sanders.
Something tells me we're going to do this again. This was a great panel. And what I'll say is thank you guys for watching this episode where we focused on from side hustle to CEO. And I feel like I'm pretty excited to go out and be a CEO myself right now. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you like what we talked about, or look, if you didn't like something we talked about, go ahead, comment on it, start a dialogue, and we look forward to see you guys next time. Peace. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Common Sense. Again, I'm your host, Ayo Idowu. If you'd like to get more content from us, please like, subscribe, and follow our page.